of the San Mateo County Harbor District to order, February 19th, 2020. Roll call, Melanie?
Commissioner Brennan, Commissioner Chan-Raleigh.
Present.
Commissioner Moranis.
Here.
Commissioner Ryder.
Here.
Commissioner Matoush.
Here.
And first item on the agenda is staff introduction recognition. Ray and John. Jim? John?
Julie.
Julie?
Yeah, Commissioner Ryring, or President Ryring, Commissioners. Tonight we have Ray Wong with us. He is our new accountant, replacing David Doyle, and Ray was born and raised in San Francisco and is currently residing in Foster City with his wife, whom he recently married. He attended San Francisco State University and transferred to Southern New Hampshire University to finish his degree in business administration. And he's worked as an accountant for over 15 years in property management, warehouse distribution, and printing companies. He was also a co-owner of an IT consulting company. Ray enjoys biking, traveling, attending sporting events, and trying new places to eat. He has excellent analytical skills and has shown himself to be a great asset to the district in the short time that he's been here. And so please join me in welcoming Ray.
Welcome, Ray.
Welcome, Ray.
When did you start?
4 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Thank you for rescuing my phone.
Could you guys scoot down a little bit?
We have, let's see, this is for item 12. Wish to address the commission multiple items. See if you can on the agenda. Okay. We'll have to keep track of those. Are there any public comments or questions? Neither of these seem to be for this part of the agenda. No? So, moving on to commissioner comments. I'd like to say what a privilege it is to serve on this commission and to act as president this year. I'm looking forward to working with Mr. Pruitt, our staff, and alongside my fellow commissioners, even though we hardly have any room up here. We really are alongside each other in these chairs. We have 16 ongoing capital improvement projects. Harbor rescue and safety is 24/7. We have a lot going on at our harbors. Each commissioner on this board has done work that I admire, and I believe that this year will provide extraordinary opportunities for us to progress our mission, move projects forward, and do good work for the entire county. Thank you all for the work that you do and the time that you put in here. Thank you. Any other comments?
I have some. Go ahead.
Mr. Brenner?
You know what? We really need a new table. I can't see.
I know.
anything. And I guess partly it's because this chair is so ridiculously low. There we go. That might help. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that some of you guys know I've been spending a lot of time working on equality in professional sports and equal pay in professional sports in California as well as in Hawaii. And I just wanted to let everybody know that a couple of weeks ago I was recognized by the Honolulu City County, so it's the governance for the entire island of Oahu, with an honorary certificate. So this is the certificate, and it's in regards to the work that I've done for the inclusion of women in professional surfing. Currently on the island of Oahu, there is not a single professional competition that includes a women's division, which is pretty outrageous when you think about the fact that Oahu is one of the best places to surf in the world. And so fortunately, I've been working with the Committee for Equity in Women's Surfing, and we've had a lot of success in getting support from the city county of Honolulu. And they recently just unanimously passed a resolution that is specifically about the inclusion of women and divisions for women in surf competitions on Oahu. So just wanted to mention that, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Congratulations. Tom?
I just wanted to discuss the state of the Harbor District over the President's Day weekend. The RV lot was full, shops and outdoor seating was full, everything was crowded, busy. All of our shop owners are very happy, they were getting a lot of business. It was really good to see. Also want to mention that the first meeting to discuss the upcoming salmon season is February 27th, and that'll be up toward Santa Rosa. Good news on the whale entanglement. As you probably know, I sit on the Dungeness Crab Task Force Whale Entanglement Group. There's been a lot of attention and a lot of people working together, the commercial, recreational, governmental agencies, Department of Fish and Wildlife, and to date there's been no entanglements, so we've been very successful amending our techniques to crab a lot safer.
That's terrific. Thank you. Anybody else? If there are no more commissioner comments, we'll move to committee updates. Standing committees, any updates? Climate change, Ed?
Yes. Wait a second. Okay, well, let's start with the Wildlife Protection Committee. We did not meet this month. It wasn't due to lack of trying. I could not get my fellow commissioner to join, or even work with me on setting a date for the meeting. There is a mechanism by which one commissioner can sit with the public and meet. So the Wildlife Protection Committee did not meet, although I did have items on the agenda for it, and I'll just quickly read those. Let's see. We wanted to get an update on the CBIN project, which we did not do. Maybe we can do that this coming month. Also on the high intensity light management, that was also on the agenda, or the proposed agenda. Since we didn't meet, we didn't have an agenda. Talking about signage with respect to wildlife protection, birds, and also marine mammals. And speed limit enforcement, this is watercraft speed limit enforcements in the harbor. I've heard from the marine mammal people that there's a number of mostly harbor seals with propeller cuts from high speed, and it's very likely it's happening in the harbor. For future projects, we had water quality items on seabird protection, fuel dock management, because we still have issues with our fuel dock, and then solicit ideas for the public. So that was the non-wildlife protection meeting. We did, however, have sea level rise resiliency and tsunami preparedness meeting. I was very grateful to Commissioner Ryring that she agreed to come to our meeting. It was unfortunate that we held a meeting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because that's very difficult for our working public to actually come to these meetings. However, we did have our meeting. We met with staff, and we had members of the public join us. We talked about the West Trail, which is the trail that leads to Mavericks Beach. We had some discussion about potential projects with that. I had previously met with the Director of County Parks, and so one of the major discussion items was working with the Director of County Parks and County Parks in our shared border with Pillar Point Marsh. Pillar Point Marsh is next to the West Trail, and it shares a common border with us. And since we're doing restoration and beach replenishment work along the West Trail, it makes a lot of sense for us in county parks and the harbor district to work together to come to some plans on managing Pillar Point Marsh. Let's see, so we had discussions about potential future projects. One of them is the Princeton Shoreline, working with the county on Princeton Shoreline, along with county parks on the north end of the shoreline. And we had a long conversation about invasive species and habitat restoration in areas of the harbor. I think I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you.
I have something.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to mention that acting as board president, Commissioner Virginia Chang-Carali removed me from all committees. She did this out of retaliation. And she did this because I publicly held Commissioner Tom Mateusz accountable for sexually harassing and retaliating against me. This is something that President Raring is aware of, and in fact, she wrote a letter to the editor of the Half Moon Bay Review asking the public to recall Commissioner Mateusz. I think it's appalling that this sort of behavior is going on this board and that commissioners are being treated in this way, duly elected commissioners. And I think that this is something that's really important for the public to be aware of. Thank you.
Does this have to do with the committee update?
It is a committee update. I'm explaining to the public why I don't serve on any committees.
Okay. Anything else?
We've got an update on RV restroom ad hoc committee. So staff and the committee met, interviewed 5 groups, and we unanimously picked a vendor that we all agreed upon. And I believe there will be more on that coming up in item 14.
Thank you.
I'd like to make one minor adjustment to the committee report. We did not unanimously choose any particular respondent to the RFPs.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the consent calendar.
I would like to remove item 1, bills and claims.
All right.
And I'd like to remove the minutes.
All right, if that's all, then roll call for the consent calendar, please.
Well, I'll make a motion to move
Oh,
to approve the consent calendar, items 3 through 9, I believe. Yes, 3 through 9.
Commissioner Chang-Carali?
Aye.
Commissioner Reyes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ryder?
Aye.
Commissioner Mateusz?
Aye.
Commissioner Grant?
Aye.
Mm,
I don't know that the motion was seconded.
It was not.
It wasn't.
will you start
Do
over?
we-
You're right.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar, items 3 through 9.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do I call roll call then? Just to keep it, yeah, it's fine.
Commissioner Chang-Carali?
Aye.
Commissioner Reyes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ryder?
Aye.
Commissioner Mateusz?
Aye.
Commissioner Grant?
Aye.
Would we like to move on to the discussion of the pulled items?
Yeah.
So, let's see. Virginia, you pulled bills and claims.
Yes, so I was looking at the legal fees, And I'm just curious, I would like to know what it is that we have paid for Ogletree. I'm happy to approve all of the expenses, but I'd like to but not this item unless I'd like to see an itemized, list of expenses for the Ogletree item. I don't know what we're spending $33,000 on. So that's the reason I pulled it.
And I have a couple of comments too when it's appropriate.
Okay, let's see, Sabrina.
So, since there's a question about that, and we're supposed to be voting, I'd like to know from staff, what work Ogletree has been doing that we're being billed for, since we're now being asked as a board to consider not paying them.
Right, well, just this month, we can always
I'm
get an
asking
item,
staff.
I can get an itemization. I've already requested the itemized
This
item.
is my turn.
Yeah, I'd like an itemized item.
This is
an
my
itemized,
turn.
I'd like some,
You're
I'd like the
interrupting.
itemized.
You're
You're
interrupting.
repeating.
You're interrupting. I wasn't finished. I asked staff a question and you started talking. That
Yeah,
is
I've
very
already asked
rude
for it.
and bullying behavior.
Oh my
Please
God,
stop.
stop bullying me.
Please stop. Please.
So
So
do
the
we
question
have an
was
itemized?
for staff, if we could get a summary of what type of work they've been doing, because I'd like to know.
I know the billing is for the month of January,
Mm-hmm.
and that included the included items from the month of December in the January billing. That included the sexual harassment training that day, and sexually harassment prevention and anti-harassment prevention training for the entire district staff. Also included time in policy development.
So that's for $5,000.
I know some of that was in there.
Right, so
As to the
that's
specifics, I can provide a comprehensive report to you at a later time.
great. So the $5,361 for the month of January is for that, but I'd like an itemized accounting of the whole entire $33,000 that's, we have now spent.
I
Maybe
wasn't done with my
35,000.
turn. Do you mind?
So if we can get that, that'd be
Why are
great.
you continuing to interrupt
Is
me?
that okay, Jim?
Why are you continuing to interrupt me? Please stop.
Please
So
stop
the
bullying
next
me.
thing I wanted to say, thank you, is I wanted to point out that our 2018-19 total cost for legal billing for that fiscal year was $475,520, so just under $500,000. And for 1920 to date, we're at $145,903. And I just wanted to point out what an improvement we've made on our legal billing costs. That's all I needed to say, thank you.
So do we want to approve the bills and claims absent the Ogletree billings?
I'll make a motion for that.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rivera,
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan,
No.
Commissioner Chamberlain.
Aye.
That motion passes. Sabrina, you pulled bills and claims?
Sorry, can I just
Oh.
clarify something?
Uh-huh.
So the bills and claims are approved in the previous month, they're pre-approved, so we've already paid Ogletree. So I'm just questioning, is the motion that you made just not to accept the report at this point in time? Is that the motion?
I guess, but you know what, I still would like the itemization of it and, the billing that.
Isn't that something you can do
Quit
offline?
interrupting me, please.
This is just
So
ridiculous.
I would, no, what's ridiculous is you're retaliating and bullying me, so stop interrupting. So Julie, I'm just very concerned that we're paying for something that we know nothing about. So, I mean, I don't know, next week, month, before we pay him anything else, I don't want them to be paid until we get an itemization, but since they've already been paid, what can we do?
Through the chair.
So, I'm not done.
When it's my turn, I will wait.
So I would like the itemization of that. Thank you.
For the clarification.
And through the chair,
Sabrina?
Thank you. I would like to make sure that the same information is provided to the whole board, which I'm sure staff will do. And I'd also like to find out if the harassment training that we're paying for, that we already paid for, is required, or if that was just something we did that wasn't required. That's a question for council.
I'll have to look at it. Typically, there is some, California State does have required harassment training. I just need to get more facts about the training.
Aren't there
that
new
we're talking
laws?
about.
There's a new law that requires it.
I believe you're correct.
I'm sorry, Jim, what did you say?
I believe you are correct, and we'll get
Okay.
you that, we'll provide that report.
So
Oh,
I'm
that-
glad that we fulfilled that requirement. Thank you.
All right, and Sabrina, you pulled the meeting minutes from January 15th.
I did. I pulled because I was not here and I'm going to abstain.
Oh, all right, so we can, I move that we approve the meeting minutes.
Second.
Commissioner Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Rea,
Who?
Commissioner Brennan,
Abstain?
Commissioner Champerlain,
Aye.
Commissioner Morales,
Aye.
Commissioner Rara.
Aye. That motion carries. And now we're moving into E, discussion. And we have no public comments. So, John, would you like to give us an update on Big Wave?
And this item is regarding a proposed Big Wave Risk Assessment Group 2020 Half Moon Bay Training Summit. The San Mateo County Harbor District is the home to one of the largest big wave surf competitions in the world, Mavericks. Historically, the district has issued a permit for the annual Mavericks Big Wave Surf event, which the permittee has not always taken advantage of. However, even when the actual event does not take place, surfers come from around the world to ride local waves. Surfing can be dangerous, and the district recognizes the need for the public to be well educated in water safety and emergency first aid. BRAG conducts training summits at many locales worldwide and exists to educate and train surfers, first responders, and emergency service personnel in ocean risk management and skills training to maximize their own safe practices and to elevate the safety of those with whom they share their surf lineup. BRAG's program is open to participants ranging from competent recreational riders to emergency services personnel to professional big wave surfers, meeting each participant at their respective skill level. The Water Safety Summit is a 2-day course in high-risk management with both classroom and water training. The summit is designed and instructed by some of the most elite and experienced surfing professionals in the world. The registration fee this year would be $500. BRAG offers a limited number of discounted and comp spots to summit sponsors and nonprofits. If the district sponsors the event, it would receive 6 registration slots for staff and/or scholarship awardees. The board approved hosting and funding the 2019 Water Safety Summit, which consisted of 3 training days. BRAG is requesting the district consider hosting a like event again in 2020. Last year's summit was successful by all accounts. It sold out in advance with 25 placed on a waiting list. The demand by the community indicated that this critical ocean safety training was long overdue. Last year, the district paid $8,000 for a 1-day agency training and provided a total of $35,634 to support the public 2-day summit-related expenses, for a total expenditure of $43,634. This year, BRAG is offering a 2-day agency training for $18,000 and requests sponsorship support for the public summit in the amount of $12,000 and additional undetermined costs for equipment and on-site qualified personal watercraft mechanic. Staff recommends the board consider the attached proposal from Big Wave Risk Assessment Group, and if the board chooses to do so, direct the general manager to enter into a professional services agreement with BRAG for $30,000 and related statement of work costs.
So, discussion?
I'll start out. I didn't know that this was gonna be an annual event, and we just had it last year. I'm concerned about the $30,000. The Harbor District would pay that out of both revenue and enterprise and non-enterprise sources. And I'm not sure that it's good to have our taxpayers and our leasees and different people in the harbor pay this. I'm not against the training. I'm against the amount of money that they're seeking to charge us again. If they want to put on a training and find more sponsors, that would be one thing. The fees that they charged last year brought them in more than $12,000. We brought in, we gave them, like the report says, $43,000. There's got to be a way to put this on for less expense to the district. The district has, as mentioned earlier, 60 projects in progress right now, and I'm not seeing where we should divert more fees from things that we've got going on. And perhaps we could discuss another way to bring this back either on another year or find a proposal to BRAG to fund this or cover their expenses.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
So, I actually agree with Tom, and actually I didn't vote for this item last year. I think it was in July when we looked at this. Not because I don't believe in the safety and the training, I do. I think the training just happened, what, maybe 4 to 5 months ago? My problem is that it was the expense. And we didn't go through an RFP process because I understand that Commissioners Brennan and Lorenz went behind the board's back and got, they ended up going through this thing by themselves without bringing the board along with them. And I'm very uncomfortable if this kind of situation isn't going through an RFP process, which is a very public process. That being said, I'm just curious, so John, do we normally have to, I can't remember if we waive their, do they even need a commercial activity permit? I mean, how are they different from all the other people who do events where they need permits?
It was a district-sponsored event, so the district doesn't require
So
the
that's
district to have a commercial activity permit. So, in effect, the commercial activity permit was not necessary for a district-sponsored event.
Okay, so that's my thing. I think that we should, if we have local people who can do this and have done this in the past, we should at least go through an RFP process, which is what I advocated for in July. I think whenever we had the last meeting, June or July, I can't remember, but it was over the summer.
So we have never had staff look into other groups who perform this training.
BRAG is a very big wave risk assessment group. It's a very unique training agency.
Provider.
They originated as a result of a death from a local surfer here at Mavericks, and they really expanded their training capabilities, big waves in Hawaii, and now they offer this training worldwide. That's, I guess, not to say that there may not be others that can also offer like training, but obviously nobody could offer what BRAG offers. They're very unique training.
And also it might be, how onerous would it be for staff to investigate other groups that do this kind of training? And maybe give us a report on it, and also suggest a timeline if we're going to do this annually or every 18 months or every 2 years, just maybe a little more detail so that we could be more informed.
I'm not aware of any other specific big wave rescue training schools out there versus, there are schools that do ocean rescue in all kinds of conditions and give certifications, but I'm pretty sure that I'll have to double check that if that's what the board desires. That Big Wave Risk Assessment Group is the only group that does this specific type of training, specific to the big wave competitions.
Okay. And how frequently do they normally train different localities?
The group is really just starting up. Last year, they only had a couple different training summits. One was here in Half Moon Bay. Now they have several all over across the country, which they have planned.
Actually, that's not quite accurate. They've had a lot of, I mean, I've been to their summits in other locations, and they're all over the world. They're doing these trainings everywhere. It's an international operation at this point, but they're based out of Oahu.
But this year, according to the group, they've significantly increased the number of events
That's true.
they're having this year.
Yeah, that's true. But they've been doing this for a while. Well, I'll wait till it's my turn.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So the Big Wave Risk Assessment Group is the gold standard. There is no one else out there doing what they do. And if you talk to professional surfers, they will tell you that. If you look at the associations that the Big Wave Risk Assessment has within the surfing community, you will see that they are connected with all the best surfers in the world, and everybody knows who they are. So the training that athletes want is the brag training. That's the training that they seek, because they want to be safe and they don't want to die. And that's really what it comes down to. We're talking about life and death here. And we've had multiple people die at Mavericks. So this is a very serious thing. We're talking about training that could literally save someone's life, and the training is very thorough. They do an excellent job. Everybody that attended the training had a really positive experience. It brought people together that don't always get along. It unified the surfing community in a way that I haven't seen happen locally before. And there were excellent people such as Frank Corte, who helped with the training, and he worked as a volunteer with our Harbor Patrol staff. The Harbor Patrol staff absolutely loved the training, and they want to do more of it. And I think that's something John should talk about, because I don't know that the board really understands how thrilled the staff was to be working, and I'm talking about our Harbor Patrol, to be working with the people who comprise the Big Wave Risk Assessment Group. These people that run this organization are known internationally as the absolute best people in safety on the planet. So they have respect, and you have to have respect to train people and to educate them about how to save their own life and how to save the lives of their friends. And this is a serious situation, because we happen to have one of the most dangerous surf breaks at Pillar Point. And our Harbor Patrol, they're tasked with doing all kinds of things. They've got to rescue people that are having problems with vessels, they've got to deal with land-based stuff, and they also get called to deal with emergencies that happen at Mavericks. And sometimes they can't get there fast enough. I'm the person who did CPR on Cyan Milowski. Cyan Milowski is not with us any longer. He died. Coincidentally, the Big Wave Risk Assessment Group was established out of concern for Cyan's death. So people that live in Hawaii who are experts at safety training got together because a brother of theirs passed away here at Mavericks, and they came up with this amazing program. It is phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal, and I feel like we were so blessed and lucky to be able to train some of our local athletes in the way that we did. Sadly, not all of them were able to receive the training because it was a sold-out event. There was standing room only, and I wish that some of the other commissioners had had a chance to experience, because I think if you'd been there, you would have seen all the positive energy and all the great information and education that was happening. The work that we did to learn how to do CPR on teams. I mean, it goes on and on. Fortunately, there's some video of it, so if you want to, if you want to see what happened, there is video available. I just can't fathom how we would turn away the people that weren't able to attend, the people that were on the waiting list and were not able to attend this last training. I mean, we have a lot of people that want to do it. I think it's really exciting that the Big Wave Risk Assessment Group wants to fit us into their extremely busy schedule. And I'm afraid if we pass up this opportunity, we are going to miss it because they are scheduled so far out in advance. It was, kind of a miracle that we got them here last season with rather late notice. But they've been wanting to do a training at Half Moon Bay for a long time because of the fact that Sion Milowski died here, and they want to prevent more deaths like that. And I think that that's critical. These athletes, and it's not just athletes, it's like people, members of the public, that surf benefit from this training. So whether you surf at Mavericks or you surf at Lindemar on a longboard, you are going to get something out of this training. I mean, I surf like maybe once a year, and I got a lot out of the training as somebody who might be walking down the beach when someone comes in and needs to be rescued. I have a much better grasp on how to handle it. It builds confidence. And confidence is a huge thing in conducting a rescue.
Oh, that's what that bell was. Okay, I'm sorry.
So
Time limit.
last note is that Virginia, your service on the Red Cross, I would think, would influence you to be supportive of this type of training.
I am very so. I've been involved with training. My problem isn't the training. My problem is the cost. And actually, I have heard from members of the public and people from the Harbor patrol staff that it was very expensive to some people who couldn't make it, and it wasn't even a wait list issue. I'm so glad that there was a demand for it, but all I'm looking at is the cost, and I'm not sure that if we approve this today or next month, when the staff can do more research, it's going to make a difference. So that's all I'm worried about. Is I just want to understand. I don't know what my choices are, and that's all I'm asking. So don't question my commitment to. I'm not done. Please stop.
$30,000? You're going to put a
Commissioner Brennan
price
is out of order.
on people's lives?
Madam President,
I think that
I'm not done.
I think that we all agree that the training is very valuable. I
Yes.
don't think that's an issue at all.
Yes. So all I'm saying is, the problem that I have is that there was not a transparent process. This is a public event. I've heard from Harbor Patrol staff that it was
Do not start insulting me at
I'm
this
not.
meeting.
I'm
Do
giving-
not start insulting
She's
me
out of
at this
order.
meeting.
She's
Do
out
not.
of order.
You are
She's
looking
out
at
of-
me and you are
You're
talking
looking at me.
down to me.
No,
Do not do that.
you're not
Look
talking
ahead,
down.
talk
I
to
can
the
look at
chair.
wherever I
You
want.
know what? We're going to need a new seating situation
Great.
because I'm not going to
So
take this.
what I'm going
Chair,
to say,
please do
what
something
I'm
to change
saying-
the seating arrangement because I cannot sit next to this person. She is bullying me and harassing me, and
I'm
I do
not
I'm not
harassing
sure who came up with this idea of seating
I'm not
Virginia
done
J. Corrali
talking.
next to me.
I'm
Not a
not
good
done
idea.
talking.
So I need
So-
a new place to sit.
So I'm sorry that you're feeling bullied, but no one's bullying you. It's only in your mind.
You-
But what I'm trying to say, if I can finish through the chair, is that my concern is that the transparency wasn't there. And I'm not against
what?
safety. I'm absolutely for
I need a
safety.
new place
And
to
to
sit.
have an insinuation by someone who knows that I'm for safety is an insult. So my whole thing is, I'd like a transparent process. I would like us to understand what the competition is out there. I don't think the process was transparent. I think it was actually done for the one commissioner to grandstand. Because I can go back and look at other votes where I'm not even sure that two commissioners are really committed to safety. So I'm committed to both and to transparency. I'm not sure it's going to make a difference if it's held out a month. Since we just had the training 4 to 5 months ago.
Why are you insulting me at
I'm
this
sorry
meeting?
you feel insulted.
Stop
I'm not
insulting
insulting
me.
you.
Where did the
Stop
training
insulting
take
me.
place? It was August or September?
October.
Oh, it was in
Yeah, so it's
October.
like 4 months
Okay.
ago.
All right.
we
So
just had
if we
this-
have a
And this
further-
training is scheduled for October of
Yeah,
this year.
so
A
why
year
can't
later.
we, I understand that.
You
I'm
don't
not
appear to
done.
understand that.
I do, more
I
than
think
you
it's,
think.
I think that we're all on board in terms of a safety summit, holding a safety summit, and how important it is to have it. I think if some members of the commission have questions, and would like staff to perhaps look into seeing if somebody else does this training. If that sounds fine to me, I don't know if somebody wants to make a motion.
Excuse me, I have a comment.
Yeah.
Been waiting for my
Okay.
turn.
Yep.
So, first of all, after this training happened, commissioners were going out of their way to claim how great it was, how it was wonderful to see this high-level training happen. And now we have a situation where the motivations for it are being questioned. And I don't normally like to do this, but I have no choice. Commissioner Crawley, if you want to make assertions, please back them up.
Please
Call
stop
the-
bullying me, Commissioner Lorenz. You're bullying me. Stop it. And you're offending me by making false accusations. Stop bullying me.
May I continue?
If you don't bully me, yeah, I'm happy to hear you. Just stop bullying me.
So there's another example of assertions. No one's bullying anyone.
Yes, you are.
My point is to assert that I, as a commissioner, did something underhanded to bring brag to the board is outrageous. And secondly, the funding was approved by this board. So there was no fancy footwork going into this. Our public, as you've heard, is very, very excited about this. It's done a lot of service. And these commissioners here, when our staff saves people, we give them awards. We need to continue to train them to make them the best, give them the best possible training possible. And I'm fine with researching this because you will find that BRAG is absolutely the best at this. And very likely you will find no organization that can do all of this. When they come into the communities that bring them in, they interview all of the stakeholders, emergency responders, the surfers, staff if it's a harbor district. They interview everyone to find out how those organizations relate, and then when they come and do their work, they take that information and use it, as Sabrina said, to bring the community together. Secondly, Mavericks is a unique situation. It's one of the most dangerous ways in the world. It is a place that's very, very popular in the press. The surfers make good press. Big wave surfing makes good press. And at any particular large swell where Mavericks is breaking, there are experts and novices at the break. There's generally 40, 50 people out there trying to catch a wave. We, as a harbor district, and whether we like it or not, our harbor district is one of the first responders out there. So we need to continue to train them. And to think that $30,000 or $38,000 or whatever that number is a big number with respect to training. Just think of saving one life. How much is that worth to you? Okay, I'm done.
I have a comment. I would just like to pick up on that and say that I think it is absolutely outrageous that we have a commissioner on this board who's insinuating, in fact, she's not insinuating, she is flat out stating that something inappropriate happened when this body, this board, voted to approve the cost of the last training summit. So I just want to make that really clear.
You weren't at the meeting.
Did Tom have a comment?
I just want to point out, we're not turning anyone away by this. Folks can attend training elsewhere. As I stated, I have a problem with the expense. We have the training, I can see where a fee would be waived for the Harbor District. Personally, I can't see the $18,000 to train our staff for something that was just done 4 months ago. And then $12,000 that they wanted to put on the event for the public. And they talked about trying to find additional sponsorships. I would just advocate, tell them to come back. where they've got all their fees covered, and we provide the geography.
All I'm saying is this just, we can look at it, relook at it a month from now and have some research done. That's all I'm not voting against it. I just want more time. I'm sorry that the two commissioners think that I'm voting against it. I'm asking for time. It's unfortunate that they can't understand that.
Does someone want to make a motion?
I have a comment. I'd like to make clear, because I think things are being misconstrued, that this is not a vote. We are not being asked to approve a contract for something that's going to happen in the next couple of months. We are trying to get scheduled with an organization that is extremely booked, and we're trying to do that in advance so that we can have a training a year after the last training, not 4 months after the last training as was insinuated. So this is for an annual training. I want to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah, we understand that. I'm not sure, again, what the 1 month difference is going to be.
And this is just a delay tactic.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
You're not supporting the training. That's what's
That's
happening.
not, stop
That's
putting
what's
words in my
happening.
mouth and stop lying.
There is no other way to
So
look
actually,
at it.
so it's usual Sabrina Brennan is misconstruing what I'm saying. I'm asking for time. Stop glaring at me, Commissioner Lorenz.
I do hear that all commissioners are in agreement with the opportunity to provide training to our public and our employees. However, there's a difference about whether we should do this tonight and approve the attached proposal.
I move that we approve it now. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Can we have a roll call, please?
You're not the president.
I just made a motion. We got a second. Done. Roll call.
Roll call. Thank you.
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
Commissioner Chamberlain,
No.
Commissioner Ryring,
No.
Commissioner Mateusz.
No.
And I just want to make it clear again so that the two commissioners understand. We're for it, as you succinctly put it, and well, President Reinering. I just would like to give direction to the staff to see what our other options are as well. Just to exhaust them. This doesn't mean that we can't approve this next month.
I understand.
So I have a suggestion
I'm not done
as well.
talking. I'm
Oh,
not talking.
tell me when you're done.
No, I don't have to tell you anything, but what I'm asking staff to do is, and through the chair, if you think that it makes sense and is appropriate, then that's what I would like for the staff to do, is to give them direction, is to see what else is available, and maybe there isn't anything else, and that's okay, but I just don't know what the other options
I
are.
understand what you're saying. Does somebody want to make a motion to that effect?
I'll move.
I have a comment.
Is there a second?
Restate the motion.
The motion is to have staff look at what the options are and to bring back a report to just kind of give us an update as to what other options there are.
Is that gonna include asking them to find additional sponsorship and additional revenue sources and sources to cover their expenses?
Well, I can certainly amend my motion to include that, so
You
yes,
can
I
make a
will
friendly
amend that.
amendment.
I'll make a friendly amendment, are you okay?
Right, I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
I have a comment.
Oh,
I
comment.
get to comment.
Comment.
Thank you.
Sabrina.
Yeah, thank you for remembering. So, since the board seems to need a lot of additional information to make an informed decision on safety training that will save the lives of the public and also help our harbor patrol, I suggest that we have someone from the Big Wave Risk Assessment Group available via conference call so that we can hear from them directly at the next meeting and ask questions. That might be informative and educational for the board.
There's a motion and a second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Brennan,
Can you restate the motion?
Melanie?
I have the staff look at options, bring back a report to give update on staff, and I think that you said something else after that.
And then Tom.
Tom added to the motion.
Right, which was basically to
On
look at
staff
funding
and other
options.
resources.
Funding options, right?
Yes.
I'm abstaining from this.
Okay. So just to get a little more detail on this, yes. Okay.
So Commissioner Chang Crawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Reyes,
I am gonna vote no, not because I don't agree that we can reevaluate them. I do not agree with the motion, part of the motion that has to do with trying to negotiate more out of that group. I think the value that we get far exceeds the cost that we've been presented with.
And I'm now convinced that that is the right thing to do.
We're in the middle of a roll call.
So I'm gonna reverse my vote, and I'm changing my vote from abstention to no. Thank you.
Commissioner Ryer,
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush.
Aye.
So now we're going to move on to Julie's report, mid-year budget review.
Discussion item 11 provides an overview of the district's budget as adopted and revised throughout the current fiscal year versus the actual revenues and expenditures that have been reported from July 1st to December 31st, 2019. The year-to-date actual is for the first 6 months of the fiscal year, and we would expect with the budget categories to be approximately 50% of the annual budgeted amounts. And if you wanted to go to page 11-2, shows a table of that there. As you can see, we're tracking very close to the 50% for the revenues and recurring expenditures. The capital project expenditures are 25% of budgeted appropriations, with the majority expected to be spent during the second half of the fiscal year. However, the district's operating budget is projected to lead to larger variances in the second half of the year due to the following reasons. We anticipate that property tax revenues will exceed the budget by about $500,000. We initially anticipated these revenues at $7.3 million, and they're going to be closer to $7.8 million, so that's the good news, or a 7% increase. This information was received by the San Mateo County Controller's Office, and about approximately $200,000 of that is from a one-time distribution timing difference, and the rest is due to higher than anticipated property values. Salaries and benefits are expected to be higher than the first half of the year due to the filling of vacancies, the inability to successfully recruit staff at step 1 salaries, continued cost of operations staff overtime to ensure sufficient training of new employees, and the addition of 3 new deputy harbor master positions, which was approved by the Harbor Commissioner earlier this fiscal year. The projection of salaries and benefits is $6 million or $700,000 over budget, and that's an expected increase of 13%. Operating expenses are expected to increase also in the second half of the year. Items that are expected to exceed the budget by approximately $100,000 for each line item include repairs and maintenance costs, information technology costs, travel and training costs, and operating expenses. Those items are expected to partially be offset by lower legal fees of approximately $150,000 and reduction of temporary help of about $100,000. In summary, staff is recommending that this commission approve an increase to the non-operating revenue of $500,000, an increase to salaries and benefits of $700,000, and an increase to operating expenses of $150,000, with the net difference of $350,000 being funded by working capital.
So I'll make that motion to approve the increase of non-operating revenues of $500,000 an increase in salaries and benefits of $700,000, and an increase of operating expenses of $150,000.
I'll second that. Do we have any discussion? Then Melanie, roll call please.
Commissioner Morales?
Aye.
Commissioner Rivera?
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Chang-Kwok?
Aye.
We'll move on to item number 12, selection process for responsive firms. Mr. Pruitt.
Good evening, President Ryring and the board.
Oh, I'm so sorry. For when members of the public have a comment, do they speak before the presentation of the matter or after?
Staff report usually
Do
comes
the
first.
Staff report first?
Because then they know what you're speaking.
Go right ahead.
As I came on board and we were entering selection process for responsive firms to RFPs that have already been issued, it became clear to me that I was not clear and staff was not clear on the direction of the board on how we wanted to review the responses to those RFPs, evaluate those responses to those RFPs, and then make a recommendation to the full board on the selection of a responsive firm. So the staff's coming to the board tonight to seek direction on the process that the district wants to use for the selecting and hiring of design and engineering firms responding to requests for proposals. The question posed is, does the district wish to follow the process currently outlined in our published request for proposal, where the district staff conducts initial review of responsive bidders and makes a recommendation to the board, or require a process where board members and the public are involved in the initial review and responsive bidders in an open and public meeting? Recommended guidance on this is for the district to follow the process as detailed in the published request for proposal and the review and recommendation of responsive firms. Specifically, the district evaluation committee will evaluate and make a recommendation through the general manager to the Board of Harbor Commissioners for final consideration and selection. Also included in the report for consideration is a way we can set up an evaluation committee, but that doesn't necessarily need to be defined beyond a policy document after the fact, after we do the RFPs. In the alternative, the district, in considering responsive proposals to any request for proposal, conduct a public meeting to review, interview, and select the responsive firms based on the criteria published in the request for proposal. To do that alternative, we'd have to redraft our current request for proposals and reissue them for the current projects that we have outstanding right now, to include notice to any responsive firms that they will be interviewed by the board in a public setting for the selection of those, for the selection. The staff report goes into the background of what our current RFP. I pulled out the relevant our sections of that, of our district policy, which says we need to follow the best value approach, and RFPs, standard templates. We use our standard template, and I pulled out the applicable sections of that standard template that we use. And as the current process as outlined in the published request for proposal prohibits ex parte communication also outside of the selection process. That's in there also. And then the past practice from the board for the district that I've been told is that we comply with the published RFP right now, in that the staff evaluates the responsive bidders and makes a recommendation to the general manager, and that the general manager then forwards that recommendation to the board for consideration. There's also policy followed. This is also the policy followed by other cities, districts, and public agencies. In the alternative, the board can be, if it's the intent of the Board of Commissioners to be involved in the initial stages of the review, the language of the RF for proposal, request for proposal, will require revision to include commissioners as members of the district evaluation team. If the board chooses to define the district evaluation team as including commissioners, and the team consists of 3 or more commissioners, or includes others not serving as harbor commissioners, then the requirements of the Brown Act notice and public meeting requirements will be required. The district evaluation committee is made of less than all 5 commissioners, ad hoc commissioning, You can still do the ad hoc, can do the interviews as an interview evaluation team, and then make a recommendation to the board with staff as support to the ad hoc committee. The staff members would not have a vote on the ad hoc committee. Only the two commissioners serving the ad hoc committee would have a vote bringing it to the board. And I believe there's enough, in my opinion, there's enough language in the current RFP that we can accept that right now and move forward with the RFPs if we want to do it through the ad hoc committee, or if we want to involve anybody else but commissioners in the ad hoc committee, then we'll have to go and reissue those RFPs.
Thank you, Jim. We have two public comments. The first is from Matthew Clark on this item.
Let's let Dan go. He's actually
Can I go first?
So Dan
in
Haggerty.
another meeting right now, so he needs to go.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. Dan Haggerty, El Granada, 31-year resident here. What goes on in the Harbor District is critically important to the community members. And I believe that there should be more than, there should be more participation in all the decisions, especially the RFPs. So I would advise, urge that you consider opening it up in a fashion that would allow for other stakeholders and community members to be part of the decision making, as opposed to just the two board members of the Harbor District. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clark?
Good evening, President Raring and other commissioners and staff. My name is Matthew Clark. I live here in El Granada. I know that some of you know I'm on the Granada Community Services District Board. So I need to say that I am speaking as an individual. I'm not representing the district or the board. And I think I would sound a lot like what Dan just said. The decisions made by the commission really impact the local coast here. And so I think it's important that the commission does, as Dan said, this procedure in as public a manner as possible, and not only accepting but actually soliciting public input if possible. I would suggest, although I'm not sure how this stands legally, that the bidders, not their bids, but bidders that respond to RFPs be publicized, because people may have experience with those firms and have pertinent comments for the commission to consider. And that the commission try to, as much as possible, utilize local talent and experience, particularly here on the coast side, because frankly, we could all use the work. And I would ask that you would could also consider adding people who come forward and have some experience or expertise in whatever the bid process is about. Perhaps sit in with the evaluation committee and have provide public input. Thank you.
Thank you. Board discussion?
I have
Ed?
a few things to say. First of all, I'd like to thank both of you. I definitely appreciate your input, and I'm in complete agreement with you as a matter of fact. So thank you for, especially Dan, you rushed out of a meeting to come here. Appreciate it.
In fact, I need to get back and watch the rest of the meeting on video. Thank you very much.
You can watch them with the rest of our viewers. So we have a long list of large projects before us. And the district, in my view, does not have an effective process for evaluating and selecting firms that respond to RFPs. In fact, I would argue, as evidenced by the lack of respondents to our RFPs, that the entire process needs revamping. Everything from how we advertise RFPs to the methods of evaluating them need review. The district should use modern accepted practices. So here's some suggestions, by no means exhaustive. I believe the evaluation committee, and I'm calling it a committee, should be appointed by the board, not by the board president alone. The district, in considering responsive proposals to any request for proposals with a projected cost of, say, just for the sake of argument, over $1 million, that way we don't micromanage small projects, would conduct a public meeting and review and interview, et cetera, et cetera. So it's in my opinion that an evaluation committee should be composed of at least the director of operations, director of administrative services, a planner analyst, a member of the public, at least one, and a subject matter expert. That's just one version of how an evaluation committee could look. Right now, what do we have? We have 2 commissioners who are appointed by the board president and staff. We're not a big organization. We don't necessarily have the resources or talent to evaluate all the respondents to these large projects. And we have a community that's full of experts, and I think we should reach out to them. Okay, done.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have comments.
Sabrina?
Yeah, so I agree with what I've heard so far. And I want to talk about, as an example, later in the agenda, we have the master plan RFP proposal included in this packet. And our approach to soliciting RFPs, while I believe the staff has been doing, the best that they can, I think that we have to take a look at that approach and re-envision how we're doing it. Because, as example, with the master plan, we put out an RFP, we only received 1 response, and we got a response from an engineering firm. We didn't get any responses from firms that specialize in doing master plans. So that indicates right there that we definitely need to revisit the process for how we're crafting RFPs and how we're distributing those RFPs so that we get a robust response. And I'm not going to say it's easy. I don't think it is. And I'm not criticizing staff, but I do think that we've got to get creative about how we're doing this, because 1 response isn't enough. With regards to the evaluation committee, I completely agree that a board president should not handpick 2 commissioners to be the sole committee members on an evaluation committee. As much expertise as these 5 commissioners have, none of us are engineers, none of us are general contractors, and certainly none of us are architects. There are some really amazing people in our community. I'll just use an example of the restroom at Surfers Beach, since that's really what kind of brought this whole thing up. A perfect person, just as an example, to have on the committee to bring forth expertise might have been someone like Jill, who's been the planning person with the city of Half Moon Bay, who's been working on this project alongside the district. So to not include, we don't have a planning department here, to not include that type of expertise when Jill has clearly said she'd be willing to participate doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think we need to reach out to our partner agencies and potentially the design review committee, the planning, the county planning commission, wherever it's relevant. I'm not saying we need all of those people for every evaluation process, but if we're evaluating a project that's going to cost the district millions of dollars, I think we have to think about how we get the expertise needed to weigh in so that we make the right decisions. And the reason this is so important is because in the past, we have hired firms, including specifically an engineering firm that I'm thinking of, to drive a project, and that project has been going on for many years. It has not been, there's been no groundbreaking, there's been no construction started whatsoever. It's been an incredibly slow process, and had the district evaluated the RFP process differently and the proposals differently, we might not be in the predicament that we're in now. One trend that I've noticed with the district is instead of hiring an architect that would then hire subcontractors, we've been hiring engineers. And so that's something that we should be looking at as well. So I'm gonna have additional comments, but I will let whomever wants to talk next.
Thank you. Anybody else?
So I would just like to point out the lack of respondents in today's environment is partly due to a full employment situation and how busy everyone is everywhere. But I'm puzzled about, it seems like we did an evaluation just recently of a number of groups, and we had a meeting that was open to the public and no members of the public choose to show up. Now that's something that we can't change. We had the meeting, it was open to the public, staff, we had our ad hoc committee. I think the RFP process that we have right now is working and public is welcome now, so I'm not seeing where we have an issue.
What
Was
meeting
that-
are you talking about, just for clarification?
The RV lot bathroom,
There was a public meeting held about that? About,
the staff and the ad hoc committee interviewed 5 groups. It's a different topic for tonight.
that wasn't a
That's
public
not-
meeting. Was that a public meeting? Because I heard that wasn't a public meeting.
That was not an open and public meeting. It was 2 ad hoc members supported by staff.
Okay, I didn't know that it was not open. So anyway.
That's my fault, I apologize.
Any other comments?
Well, I have other comments. So I think, there are things that we could be doing differently. We have a couple choices. We can let staff make all the decisions, which means we don't need to be here. There's no need for the board. We can work with staff and have the respondents, at least the top 3, come and give us their pitch and hear their proposals and learn from them, like we've done in the past. So that's an option where the public can hear the proposals and chime in with comments, and the board can ask questions. That seems like a pretty streamlined approach for dealing with it. Heck, if we'd done that, we would have been already through this on a number of fronts. The third process is, if we want to go the route of having a proper evaluation committee, then we should have criteria for the evaluation committee, and I don't think that that needs to be in the RFP. I don't think we need to be overly prescriptive in the RFP, but I think that the board needs to establish a process by which we appoint members to an evaluation committee and we pick people who are relevant to the subject matter. So we find, it doesn't mean that there can't be board members on it, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that we do need to have some expertise. An example I will give is the evaluation committee that San Mateo County enacted to review Plan Princeton. In that case, Lisa Ketchum, who's now planning commissioner, was appointed to be the member of the public to serve on that evaluation committee. Additionally, there were a number of other people that had expertise, and there were other people that represented different departments within the county that sat on that committee. It wasn't a huge committee, but there was a diverse group of people on the committee, and they reviewed and interviewed the applicants for that project. It was complicated. Many of them had subcontractors. It wasn't an easy process, but they did come to a consensus at the end, and I heard from Lisa Ketchum directly that she thought that having the expertise was the key to the whole thing. So you know, if we're gonna do it in a meeting and we're all gonna hear the proposals and the public's gonna be part of it during a regular meeting, I think that works. If we wanted, you know, if we wanted to decide that, okay, a project that costs $1 million or $2 million or whatever is worthy of having an evaluation process, then we should come up with some procedures for how we do that. We shouldn't just, it shouldn't be anything goes here. You know, other public agencies have a process for how they appoint members to an evaluation committee. Universities particularly have a process for how they appoint people to an evaluation committee. You need to look at things like, do they have a conflict of interest? You know, usually a procurement professional weighs in on it. There's so much information on this online about how to do a proper evaluation committee. I think we could, you know, definitely make some improvements in that area. So I'd like to hear from our general manager on some of these thoughts, if this is any, you know, if you have anything you can add to that.
The, President Ryan, with your permission,
Yes.
if staff is doing if the evaluation committee is staff, we can invite in members of the public or subject matter experts, such as somebody from the planning department of Half Moon Bay, or from the county, or whatever subject matter expert, and as many as we need to make sure we cover all those. But you know, if the ad hoc committee is selected to do the review process, and they want to do it in the ad hoc without having a public meeting, then only the 2 ad hoc members can do that. With only 5-member board, 2 members can be there. And staff could be there to support, but doesn't have a vote. That includes if the ad hoc committee wants to bring in a subject matter expert. Once you do that, it's no longer solely the ad hoc committee members, and then it opens it up to public comment and public participation. And I'm not saying good or bad on that, I'm just the process. Or if you want to go with a full board at a public meeting, then it's of course a full public meeting. There's many policies out there that go by the cost of the project, where some projects don't even reach the board. If they're $250,000 or less, the board doesn't even look at it. Those are made by just, the contracts are issued by staff. And some of the policies and procedures there are policies out there that define a evaluation committee that is all staff with bringing in subject matter experts as you need it. Some organizations do it all electronically, and the committees never meet in person and discuss. It's all graded online through a software program. We don't have that program. But the current, again, I go back to the current RFP, that's not how the current RFP is drafted, to have an open and public meeting. My concern with having an open and public meeting for the initial design and engineering firms is it will chill the competition, because I think, one, not as many people will apply, and maybe that's a sign. 2, it provides an unfair business advantage to the person or the firm that follows the first, and the second who follows the person second. Because it's a public meeting, so they can sit through that and learn about how the board reacts to the first respondent, and they can change their presentation on the spot to do that, and that would invite protests. And under our current process, those protests would go in my opinion.
Thank you, Jim. I'll just weigh in here. I appreciate all the comments that have been made by the public and the commissioners. I do trust our staff and the process as it currently stands. There always will be the opportunity for the public to be involved. I think we need to give our new general manager the opportunity to follow the current process, and I very much appreciate the staff taking on the preliminary selection.
I'd like to respond to a few of the comments I've heard. First, thank you to the general manager. You've done a great job in laying this out for us, and I appreciate having the opportunity to have this discussion. It's extremely important for us as a harbor district because we have a lot of projects going on. We've had a hugely dysfunctional harbor district over the years, and we have an opportunity to bring forward and do these projects very well, including drafting our master plan. Excluding the public, which is the basic protocol that we have right now, is not going to help us do this correctly. There are many ways that we can evaluate, bring the public in, and have firms do presentations for us in such a way that doesn't advantage one or the other. We just have to work as a board to find out how to do it. So my suggestion to my viewership, our viewership, is to get involved. Don't let us do something you don't like. And number two, for the board, I suggest that we do two things. One is we don't let this process just collapse everything that we're doing, but admit to ourselves that we do not have, as I said before, a process that really uses current accepted practices, and work together as a board and develop a protocol where we reevaluate how we do the RFPs so that we can encourage more applicants to apply, and then also work as a board to bring in the public to help us. Excuse me, Tom, I'm going to move over so that Nancy can see. So that we can bring in the public and the subject matter experts from wherever they reside in San Mateo County to help us make the right decisions. The other thing that will happen is if we bring in the public to do this, when we do a massive project, and we have a lot of them coming, we will have more acceptance from the general public. We'll have a better project. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I'm confused about some things I've heard here. Am I hearing that there's okay, first of all, I'm just going to take on this notion that that you advantage one firm over another by having firms come and give presentations. We have many decades on this board of firms coming in and giving their proposals at public meetings. So there's a long-standing history with this district where we've had firms come in. The way it's been handled is you have the firms sit outside the meeting, you ask them to do that. You can't require that they do that, but you can ask them to. Never has there been a firm that refused to do that. Every time the firms have agreed to sit outside the meeting until it's their turn, and then they come in, they give their proposal, board members can ask questions, and then they get up and leave, and then the next firm comes in. I agree that, if you say, for example, got 10 respondents to an RFP, that you wouldn't want to have 10 proposals in one meeting. You would want to have staff recommend perhaps the top 3, and then you hear from the top 3. But to completely take the board out of the process for considering what firm we're going to hire, it doesn't make any sense at all. That's us shirking our responsibilities, and it's not meant as a statement that staff is not competent, but we got elected to make these decisions. This is our responsibility to make decisions about what firm is going to take on our master plan or a new administrative building. Who's going to design a new administrative building for this district? Probably the most exciting project this district has had in, gosh, I don't know how long. Those are things that, just like if we were hiring a firm to renovate Johnson Pier, the fishing community is not going to be okay with the board throwing up their hands and saying, we're not weighing in, we'll just go with whatever staff wants to do, even though the project is going to cost, what did they say, $11 million or more? At what point, are we going to let staff make decisions on projects that cost $5, $6, $7, $8 million? That doesn't make any sense. Why would we do that? You don't see other boards doing that. They're involved in hearing and learning about the options of who is applying for the work. And so I think that it's an important learning experience. You know, when we hear those proposals, we learn more about what our options are. We might end up hiring a firm that we say, hey, we heard an idea from another firm, can you do this? You know, I mean, there are opportunities to learn through this process. So for me, it doesn't really matter whether it's done through an evaluation committee, so long as there's a well thought out process for establishing an evaluation committee with expertise that's relevant, or whether it's at an open board meeting. But to shirk our responsibilities and to say, oh no, we're gonna let staff make all the decisions on $1 million projects, that is completely irresponsible and shirking our fiduciary responsibilities. So I'm totally not on board with that, and I can't believe any commissioner here would consider doing that. I think this is an exciting time. Why wouldn't we want to be involved?
Tom, thank you. Tom?
What I'm hearing is there's a misunderstanding on the role of public input. Following the staff hiring a firm, there will be public meetings that will follow and provide plenty of opportunity for public input in a number of venues. The staff has a job here, and personally I'm going to recommend going with the process as it exists now. We're not shutting the public out of anything. There'll be plenty of room for public comment once a firm is hired. So I'll go so far as to recommend the district follow the current process as outlined in our published request for proposal, where district staff conducts the initial review of responsive bidders, make recommendation to the board, and by way of additional guidance, the district will follow the process as recommended in the detailed request for proposal and the review and recommendation of responsive firms. Specifically, the district evaluation committee will evaluate and make recommendations through the general manager to the board of harbor commissioners for final consideration and selection. Further, the district evaluation committee will be composed of the district director of operations, the district administration services, the district planner analyst, and it does not at all shut out that subject matter experts can include members of the public or partner agencies as requested by the evaluation committee. Looking for a second.
I'll second.
I have a comment when it's time.
Comment?
So my comment is this. In many of these large projects, one of the largest components, especially initially, is public outreach. So what better way to evaluate how well a firm does public outreach than to have members of the public present when the firms are providing their information to us? So they are excluded if we have a 2-member board and staff and maybe 1 member of the public in a closed meeting. I want to point that out. It's not like it's a public process. And again, I'll state, one last thing I'll state is that we as a district should have a process that is open and describes how we go about this when we bring members of the public in from the very beginning.
I don't see where anything's negated. Our district goes to tremendous odds to distribute this far and wide, and so many people are notified for bidding opportunities and for input.
I agree. I'd like to call for the question.
I have a comment. So
I'd call for the question.
the current process,
I'm
Per
sorry,
the
Serena, she
RFP.
called for the question, so we're.
so you as chair, you as the board president are gonna cut me off?
No, I
Is that
called
what-
for the question.
Is
It's
that
the
what's gonna
process.
happen?
If you,
It's the board president's
Melanie,
prerogative.
can you please do the roll call?
So you're cutting me off.
no, we're going through the normal process.
This, Nancy, I just wanna say that the harassment and retaliation that I have to deal with, and specifically by you, as far as retaliation goes, you, Commissioner
Yes.
Shankarali,
Yes, Commissioner.
Commissioner Matoush, The retaliation is
I've got
totally
I've called for the
inappropriate
question.
and unprofessional, and I am very concerned about the lack of professionalism I see on this board. I had a simple comment that I wanted to make, and you as board president have decided that I am not allowed to speak.
Melanie, can you do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Brennan?
Wait, is this for the vote to call the question, or is this a vote on
I have no
the?
idea.
We'll call the.
I have no idea what this
We'll do
is.
the vote to call the question, that's right.
Yeah, and then,
No. I vote no to call the question.
Commissioner Chan-Crowley?
Aye.
Commissioner Morenas?
No.
Commissioner Raring?
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush?
Aye.
So there's a motion and a second that Commissioner Mathush made.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
I don't know what I'm voting on. Can you
Uh,
restate the motion? I don't know what the motion is.
The motion was the entire motion of your potential motion, recommended guidance. The district will follow the process as detailed in your request proposal review and recommendation of responsive firms. Specifically, the district evaluation committee will evaluate and make a recommendation through the district general manager to the board of power commissioners for final consideration and selection. Further, the district evaluation committee shall be composed of the district director of operations, the district director of administrative services, the district planner analyst, a subject matter expert that can include a member of the staff or partner agency as requested by the evaluation committee as a whole.
I vote no on excluding the public.
That's not the motion that we have under consideration, so that's an abstention, I think.
That is a no vote. You heard it? I said I
Please
vote
stop
no.
Professional
Tricia, if
president.
someone reformulates the motion, what's the?
It's a no vote to the motion.
It's just a no vote.
Commissioner Chan-Crowley?
Aye.
Commissioner Morenas?
No.
Commissioner Raring?
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush?
Aye.
So that motion carries, and we move on to number 13, master plan development proposal approval. Mr. Pruitt.
And I'm going to let John walk through the master plan development. It was a lot of his work from developing it.
Thank you, John.
This is the subject is for the board to consider a response to an RFP that was put out for the master plan development after our development of our strategic plan was completed. So, over recent years, substantial changes have occurred at both Pillar Point Harbor and Oyster Point Marina Park. At Pillar Point Harbor, changes in the fishing industry have made the Johnson Pier terminus too small for their demand. This, coupled with increased tourism, a demand for additional recreational opportunities, and facility improvements, must be carefully weighed against climate change impacts, specifically sea level rise. This all makes the master plan very important. At Oyster Point Marina Park, a development project is in progress, resulting in decreased district landside responsibilities. A 2018 agreement between the city of South San Francisco and the district will be in effect until at least 2033. This agreement has specific timelines for several capital improvement projects, all of which must take into consideration sea level rise, making a master plan, again, very important. All district facilities must also be updated to meet current ADA regulations. The district's objective is the development of a master plan that will serve as a comprehensive plan to guide future capital improvement projects. The plan is further intended to resolve existing land use conflicts and identify future physical improvements required to address sea level rise and new ADA regulations. The master plan is expected to be user-friendly and written in a manner easily understood by the public. The plan will also reflect the district's commitment to the best achievable balance of resource protection, coastal access, sustainable development, coastal dependent businesses, active and passive public recreation. All improvements will address ADA concerns identified in the district's ADA transition plan and self-evaluation. The master plan request for proposal was advertised twice in the San Mateo Daily Journal and in the Half Moon Bay Review. It was also posted on the district's website and was sent to 16 different plan rooms. 8 different firms had expressed interest, but ultimately only one response was submitted by Moffitt and Nichol with a total cost proposal of $342,600. Moffitt and Nichol has more than 30 years' experience working in the Bay Area, having completed more than 1,000 projects on Bay Area coastlines. Moffitt and Nichol have worked with the district for the past 20 years at both Oyster Point and Pillar Point. They have successfully completed multiple district projects, including the demo of Romeo Pier, Pillar Point Harbor sea level rise assessment, Oyster Point Weta Ferry Terminal Docks 8 and 11 replacement, and the preparation of marina facility condition surveys for both Pillar Point and Oyster Point Marina. This experience would greatly benefit the master planning effort. In their proposal, Moffitt and Nichol partners with 505 Design for architecture and public engagement and outreach. This evening, staff presents 2 alternatives for the board to consider. Alternative 1 is accept Moffitt and Nichol's proposal and authorize the general manager pursuant to a request for proposals, response evaluation from qualified firms and individuals to assist the San Mateo County Harbor District with development of a master plan, and enter into a professional services agreement with Moffitt and Nichol for an amount not to exceed $342,600 to create a district master plan in accordance with the scope outlined in the request for proposal. The second alternative is to reject Moffitt and Nichol's proposal and resubmit the RFP in an attempt to get additional responses to our RFP.
Thank you, John. And we have some public comment on this item. Mr. Clark.
Thank you. I was going to ask about how an engineering firm ended up with, in this position to be approved this evening, but now I understand that you only got one viable response. But given the list of requirements in the RFP that Mr. Moore just rattled off, seems to me a few of them don't really fit in what engineers do. But I'd like to ask, this maybe should have been on the previous item, but how you do this. I'll give an example. I happen to also be an alternate board member of the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side, and Sam has their process involves their staff, the appropriate staff with the appropriate expertise does their own in-house estimate of what something should cost. And then when the RFP comes out and they get responses, that's the value that they judge it against. Does this district do that?
No.
Do you have an idea of how much things should cost?
We don't do that, Matthew. Thank you for asking.
Well, then I have to ask is how do you know that $342,600 is a reasonable cost?
We don't know.
But I also understand the reality of Commissioner Matush's comment that the Bay Area economy is booming, people are really busy. Sam, Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side on a relatively recent project put out their normal procedures and also only received one bid, and they were very surprised. And I think it was basically that we live way over here on the coast, and the firms that normally would respond are simply busy, and they just didn't bother. So I know that is a real problem. And my last point would be just to reiterate that a master plan is a pretty specialized requirement that you need to get done, and a lot of public outreach. And I understand the difficulty with that too, because the district I serve on, we have to do the same thing, is get people to respond. And as I always say, there's, no matter what you do, there's 10% of your constituents are going to come back and say, hey, why didn't anybody ever mention this? So,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you.
Board discussion.
I'll go first. So after the strategic plan, the master plan is one of the most important documents this district will ever develop. And the success of the master plan is entirely dependent on the choice of firm that we use to help us through the process. So again, choosing a firm simply because they're the only ones that were the respondents is not the way to go in my view. We need to spend more time. And then secondly, I agree, an engineering firm is the worst for this. They're great with spreadsheets, especially this firm, Moffitt Nichols. We've dealt with them a lot as a member of the public when they've done projects for us. For the Harbor District, when I was a member of the public, I was not happy with their outreach. I went to a meeting in one of their projects and sat here and listened to the firm tell us what a great outreach program they had, and it turned out that there were maybe 10 members of the public in the entire meeting. So I can't accept this particular firm, but I suggest that we broaden our scope and look for a firm that specializes in working with communities and developing master plans. This document is going to live for a long time. We don't want to do this wrong.
Thank you. Tom?
Well, I see where Moffitt Nichols does have a successful track record of working with us at the Weta Ferry Terminal. Anybody that's visited that sees it's a really nice operation. I've been there on a number of events. It's used for public meetings or public events. They're talking about reaching out with a design firm for architecture. They've used public input in the past, and I don't see why, once we hire them, you can't additionally mandate more public meetings. I therefore motion to accept Moffitt Nichols' proposal and move forward to execute a professional services agreement as drafted by District Council with Moffitt and Nichols for an amount not to exceed $342,600 to create a district master plan in accordance with the scope outlined in the RFP.
So I'll second that, but I do have, I want to have a discussion because I do have some questions when you're ready.
Okay, so yeah, we can continue with discussion.
Yeah, that's why I seconded it, so that we could continue. the
Yeah, I have
discussion.
concerns about this amount. To Mr. Clark's point, I feel like this is just a random number. We have nothing to compare it to. I don't know what it should cost. We do have a strategic plan in place. I think that firms that do this kind of work would perhaps be more efficient, so I have a lot of questions about this, about moving forward. Virginia, we'll go down the line.
So, John or Jim or Julie, just a quick question, because when I saw the price tag for this, I thought, wow, that's a lot. And we just got done with our strategic plan, which is in some ways got some components of kind of a master planish thing. I mean, are we able to incorporate, I mean, I saw what their request for proposal is, but it just, how extensive does this work have to be in light of the fact that we have a strategic plan that's got a lot of components, I think, for a master plan? So I'm just trying to understand what the $342,600 is going towards.
Like Commissioner Lorena said, this is, it is a very detailed, challenging piece of work to create the master plan, looking at the Toad Point Harbor facility from a large scale, and then also at Oyster Point, determining through public meetings, what sort of direction we want to go with the land use development, et cetera, and design architectural aspect as well. And as far as the money, the cost in the proposal, we normally don't even open up when we do an RFP by the terms of our request for proposal. We don't open up the cost form until we have, the evaluation committee has determined the best fit for the district. In this instance, we do not have multiple comparative cost proposals,
Right.
Or even comparative proposals at all. So it is very difficult to, there's no apples to apples to compare what we're requiring with a Pillar Point Harbor and a Oyster Point Marina, what a firm should charge. But not only that, we don't even have, in this instance, the capability of comparing different proposals.
I understand
So
that.
that is an added challenge for
So,
us.
but what are we getting for 342,600? I mean, I know we've got all of this, but again, I think that we just did our strategic. I'm not against the money. I'm just trying to wrap my hands or my arms around what it is that we're getting in. I mean, it's not even what we're getting. It's like we just spent time and money on a strategic plan that's, like I said, got some components of a master plan. I'm not opposed to a master plan. Let me just make that very, very clear. I'm just trying to understand if there's a way to be a little more cost effective and cost efficient based on what we already have. Because this seems like, I mean, I know we're getting all of this, but do we need all of this in light of the strategic plan that we just got done with? Literally like 2 months ago.
The request for proposal that we've put out is based largely on examples of requests from proposals from other like entities, other public entities, and their request for proposal response that's attached here is very detailed.
Yes.
And it addresses all of the aspects that we included in our request for proposal.
Okay.
So it is quite extensive. If the board wanted us to reevaluate our request for proposal for the master plan and maybe look at some more examples, maybe bring back to the board a couple alternatives for request for proposals for a master plan for the board, or maybe even have a workshop, you know, to develop the request for proposal for a master plan prior to advertising it. That might be an option.
And this might help you with your view of what we're talking about. And I think for our members of the public that are here, and also for our viewers, it might be helpful to just quickly describe, at least from my view, of the difference between a strategic plan and this master plan.
I know what the difference is, but I don't think our strategic plan is like a normal strategic plan either. I think, and that's not good or bad. I'm just saying there could be a combination. I'm just trying to understand if there's any economies of scale here. That's
Right. So I'd still like to explain it
Okay.
to our public and our viewers, because not everyone has been in all of our meetings.
right, but you
So-
were looking at me when you mentioned that. That's why I thought you were addressing me.
Can I follow up on that, or you?
No, I'd like to just point
Oh,
out
sorry.
the difference. So the strategic plan doesn't have the kind of detail that a master plan does have. The idea of a strategic plan is for an organization like ours to work with the public and our staff and the commission to come up with an overarching view of what the district's future, the Harbor District's future is going to look like, the things that we want to accomplish. It's kind of the guiding principles for the district. The master plan is the detailed version of that. That's where we get down and we do a lot of detailed work. And that's why it's so important to hire a firm that has experience in doing this, not just an engineering firm.
Thank you. Sabrina?
Thank you. So first of all, it's interesting that the master plan that we currently have is not attached to the staff report. So I believe that that was an oversight. It would have been helpful to have that here so that everybody could see just how large that document is, and get a sense of it. The strategic plan is nothing like a master plan. They're completely like apples to oranges. The strategic plan that we've been working on is not a master plan. It doesn't even, it's not even in the same ballpark. So, don't even know why that would be brought up. But, with regard to the process, here we are talking about this proposal, but we don't have the firm here to tell us about it. We can't ask them questions. And this is exactly the problem when we get a staff recommendation to approve a proposal for a huge project that's really important, that's going to influence the district for years to come and generate all kinds of additional projects. When we don't have that firm here to ask questions and to talk it through, it's really hard to feel confident about approving this. So I think that that is inherently the problem with the process that the board just approved on the last agenda item, where we're gonna just let staff tell us how it is and then we're gonna rubber stamp it or whatever. So the other thing I wanna bring up is there are firms that specialize in producing master plans. Right now, what we're getting is a proposal from the firm that we hire to do our CIP projects. I can't count how many times we've hired Moffitt Nichols for big projects, and will continue, I'm sure, in the future, because they're one of the few firms that does some of the work that we need. So there is inherently a built-in conflict of interest, which is critical here, and we can't overlook that. To hire the firm that then is going to do all the projects recommended in the master plan to create the master plan is a built-in conflict of interest. And I'm not comfortable with that. So I think that's a reason to solicit additional proposals. And I wish that we had done this sooner. So, you know, we've been sitting on, when did we get this proposal? Just curious. When did this come in?
The RFP, back in April.
In April. Okay, so we've had this since April. That's almost a year. And, you know, it seems to me that ideally we would have gone out for, solicited additional proposals by now, but since we haven't, you know, it's never too late. I think, you know, it makes sense to see if we can get some proposals in and particularly target and make sure that we send out the RFP to firms that specialize in master planning. And I think that there should be an emphasis on architecture and design versus such an emphasis always, it seems, on engineering. We don't end up with the best projects when we hire engineers to do design work. And I think we need to rethink that, and we need to value people that do design work and architecture, urban planning, things like that. To always hire the engineer, it ends up costing you more in the long run in many instances, and it doesn't often produce the best results. So those are some of my initial concerns.
So we put the RFP out in late April, but we got the response from Moffitt and Nichol. All responses were due June 28th.
So did the previous president know about this during the time the RFP went out?
The board knew the RFP was going out.
I'm not addressing you, Commissioner Brennan. I'm asking the staff. Because maybe this is a delay tactic. But I'm just curious as to what was the process? I mean, I know we got some stuff, but this went out, and why did it take so long?
Well, we got one response, but
yeah, I know, in June.
The plan was to wait until after our strategic plan was completed.
Yeah.
I thought that was board direction.
Which didn't get done until much later.
Well, does somebody care to make a motion around this?
We did.
I already did.
Yeah, there was a first and a second.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Do you want to repeat the motion, please?
The motion was recommendation, authorize the general manager pursuant to the request for proposals for response for renovations for qualified firms and individuals to assist the San Mateo County Harbor District with a master plan development to enter into a professional services agreement as drafted by District Council with Moffett and Nickel for an amount not to exceed $342,600,000 to create a district master plan in accordance with the scope outlined in the request for proposal. It was, Tom was the first, second, Virginia.
I have no comment.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm hearing is kind of an attempt to obfuscate this entire process. It's not that the public will not be involved. That doesn't happen. I utterly disagree with the statement that staff will give us a plan to rubber stamp. There's going to be plenty of public meetings. There's going to be plenty of public input. Nobody's going to run with this and do something that the board and the public doesn't agree to.
I always thought that this board really liked Moffett and Nickel. You know, my first exposure to them has been as a Harbor District Commissioner. Seems like they do amazing work. We seem to always vote in favor of what they're doing. But I do have concerns about this, about the fact that we didn't get any other bids, and I don't want to delay the process. It took us a long time to get a strategic plan in place, but I really think we made the right, you know, perhaps a different kind of company, not an engineering firm necessarily. I personally would like more information before handing this very large contract to Moffett. Virginia?
So, Jim and John, if we, could we take, I mean, I didn't, this has been a long time, I get it, almost a year, you're right. I'm not sure, what is the likelihood of getting more bids? I doubt we're gonna get more, but what other information would you want? I'm with you on this.
I don't know. I mean, a firm that might have been busy last year, maybe they freed up this year. Or maybe staff could do some investigation into an agency of our size with the kind of infrastructure we have. What should a master plan cost? If this is what it costs, you know, kind of thinking about like $170,000 for each marina area, maybe that's what we have to spend. I don't know. I just feel like not really comfortable with the fact that we just got one response
I have further
for such a
comment.
large amount.
So can I finish?
Virginia, finish and then Ed?
So how much time do you think you would need, the staff would need to get more information?
If
Because I don't want to stop the whole thing, right?
If it's simply going out to get more information, we can have a report back to the board next month.
What kind of information?
Well, that's why I'm asking staff.
Wouldn't we be going out for RFP again? For
Well,
new
one of the
proposals?
things I mentioned is giving the board an idea of a ballpark figure of what a master plan should cost for an entity like ours with infrastructure,
Or size.
size, similar,
Like a comparison.
right.
Yeah. That kind of information.
What I don't understand is if we're gonna
So
take
I'm
a.
not done with my question.
Oh, go ahead.
So Jim, how long do you think it would take?
The information you're requesting, we can have something back to you about what's the average price or what is a
The comps.
cost range for a strategy or a master plan. We can research that and get back to you. And we can also research the number of firms out there and talk about there's other firms out there. And if we want to resolicit, or we can just simply redraft the RFP now and send it out and see if we do get more responses.
Is that usually a 30-day window?
Or a 60-day
Or
window?
60 days?
I mean, I don't know.
We can set it for 30 or 60, but
Mhm.
to make sure we get the maximum response, I would recommend 60.
Yeah.
And then during that time, we could also do a little study about what we might expect to see in terms of cost.
Yes.
Could we also look at some example master plans from similar agencies so that we have a comparison?
That's what
Yes,
Lisa's
I've got-
talking about.
I've got multiple, because that's how we compile the RFP that we put out. So I've got multiple that the board can look at, and we can look at more as well.
It seems like we should be getting like a presentation where we're learning about it.
Again, I think the board might direct us to actually have a workshop or something to develop the RFP, if
I
the
don't
board
think we need
desires.
that.
Well, I think that the RFP, I haven't read it, at least not lately. It's been a while. The RFP, you know, it would be a good idea to take a second look at it. I think I trust staff's capable to do that. But I think that, you know, if it's tailored towards soliciting engineering firms, how can we make that RFP more approachable to firms that specialize in master planning that could then maybe team up with an engineering firm for the expertise? Like maybe it's a combination of a master planning firm that is really good on the design part, and they're working in conjunction with Moffett Nickel or some other engineering firm. You know what I mean? Like how can we craft the RFP so that we get more creative solutions?
Well, Moffett Nickel is, as I said, they are proposing to partner with 505 Design, which has done multiple, if you look at their resume, they've done multiple master planning projects. We were disappointed that we only ended up with, because of, like I said, we advertised in 2 publications twice, and we went out to 16 different plan rooms. We had 8 firms that did express interest, so we were disappointed that we ended up with just one final proposal. And again, staff are just bringing this to the board for direction, whether or not, it's not a decision for staff to make to just shelve this and go back out. Obviously if the board was impressed with the proposal and the 505 Design that Moffett Nichols suggesting that they partner with, the board might be directing staff to, as the motion indicates at present. However, if the board's not comfortable and wants us to relook even at the construction of the RFP itself, staff are at the direction of the board.
I mean, ideally, John, and I think what would be great is if, obviously, if we had more than one firm, so we have some comparison. I agree with the suggestion that we do a little research to find out what these things typically cost. I think that's always a good practice. And then also review sample RFPs from other agencies. Sample master plans from other agencies. I'd like to see those. But I really want to hear from the applicant, the firm putting in the proposal. I mean, I've got questions, and I want to feel convinced that the design aspects are going to be great, and you know, I'm open to learning from them, but I want to be that involved. And so, you know, I'm concerned that the way we're looking at this tonight doesn't allow us that opportunity to hear from them. So what's another 60 days at this point? I mean, I don't see why we can't be working on getting more information through staff and also put the thing back out for 60 days. And then by the time that rolls around, maybe we'll have one more, or maybe we'll have 2 more. And then we could have a little workshop to, to learn from the firms and find out, that's the way I would see doing it, what makes sense, and the public could be part of the process, because this is huge. I mean, it's so critical to our district that we have a really strong master plan, and I've given entire presentations on how all of the problems with our current master plan, I've read that thing inside and out, and I could give a lecture on it. So I know how important this is to our fishing community. this is, you know, really the lifeblood of, you know, the fishing community. What gets done in this master plan is gonna impact people's, jobs.
Thank you, Sabrina. Melanie, I really do need you to keep time, please, so that we can keep moving this evening, for every comment, if you would, please. Tom?
So, what I'm hearing is people are a little uncomfortable with Moffett and Nichols, but they're not gonna be doing the design. So if we wanted to hear from somebody, I would recommend going ahead and passing Moffett and Nichol and bring in 505 design to find out what else is gonna go on. We've already put it out to public review, and we've sent it to major plan rooms. And to think that you're gonna do this again and get a different response, I think is, you know, fallible thinking. If, personally, I recommend our board approve Moffett and Nichol, and if you want a presentation, ask 505 to come in and say, how are we gonna work with you? See if you're comfortable. If you don't like it then, say, okay, maybe this isn't gonna work after all. See you later.
Ed? I'm sorry, thank you.
So I agree with Tom on hearing from 505, but I would like to hear from both of them, actually. With respect to Moffett Nichols and their engineering work, I agree with you. They've done great work for us. Not a problem, but this is much more than engineering. This is planning. And it takes, I don't know anything about 505, so I would love to hear from them.
Me too.
Definitely. And once again, I'd like to correct my fellow commissioner on the public outreach aspect of this. Of course, any firm that we hire, one of the big components of their work is public outreach, and especially if we're talking about a master plan. Of course, they're going to do public outreach. My point is not that that's not going to happen. My point is that we want members of the public to help us evaluate how well they communicate to the public, because that's what it's about.
Okay, so, yes.
So Tom, if we voted for this, we would be voting also to spend the $342,600. So that's
That's the sticking point.
That's the sticking point. I mean, the design for the Moffett and Nichols, I mean, I get it, I get the whole thing, it's just that money. So I'm not totally comfortable voting for that. Just, I would love to have them come in and do a presentation, just to give us more information. So it's not that I don't have faith in, you know, what the staff is doing, but it's just, I'd like to see some kind of, at least for my internal comparison, I guess. I don't know. I just,
Again, staff
but what I'm saying is that if we
aren't
vote
making
for
a
this,
recommendation here, we're
yeah.
just bringing to
But Tom is saying that he's saying we should vote for this, which means we'd be moving ahead with the 342,000 and change expenditure, which that's the thing I'm not ready to do yet.
We do have a motion and a second. I believe, after this discussion time, do you want to modify that motion in any way, or should we do a roll call or withdraw?
I think it's, we're not gonna write a check for $342,600 initially. It's a long process, and generally you get to bid points, and I'm sure that was included in the RFP, number of steps, check, number of steps, check, number of steps, check, and it goes on and on. We're not spending $342,000 now. We're authorizing to get into a contract for that. And may I remind our board that we have also terminated long-term contracts that we didn't like in the past.
So would it lock, so Jim and John, would it lock in
No, it's
that?
not to exceed.
Right, I get it. So would it lock us into this price and give us more time? Because, you know, sometimes if we have more time and it's an open-ended situation, things become more expensive too. So that's something that I'm thinking about too. So I'm not against what Tom is saying, I'm just trying to understand the timing vis-a-vis the cost.
Well, I gave, in this staff report, we gave
Right.
two alternatives. One is to accept the proposal from the sole bidder, Moffett Nichol. The second was to reject the bid. It sounds like there might be a third option of next month ask Moffett Nichol to come to the board to better sell their proposal since they are the sole bidder, I don't think that that would be unreasonable at all.
I think that based on the fact that as much as I am not against Moffett Nickel as a vendor for this, or contractor for this, district, there is an inherent conflict of interest with them handling the master plan, which is gonna queue up or tee up gazillion projects for their firm. So I think that if we're gonna consider them, we have to do due diligence and at least look at some other proposals if we can get them. If we can't, if we put it out and we get nothing, well then,
If we solicit the RFP, there's nothing preventing Moffett Nickel from again giving a proposal. providing a
Sure,
proposal.
or not. And then if that's the other thing, if they don't, then we won't have anything conceivably, not saying.
That's a potential,
That's-
that's a potential.
well, wait a minute. If we went back to them and said, hey, we put it back out for RFP because we wanted to do our due diligence
Yeah.
as a public agency and consider more than one
Just throwing
proposal,
down.
but we got nothing. We're still interested in working with you guys. They're not gonna walk. Are you kidding? They're gonna be like, we'll take your money and we'll take all the projects that this master plan is gonna generate. I mean, come on.
Well,
Call for the
the
question.
third, okay, so, I mean, you wanna, because, okay, I was going to retract my second. But you've already called for the question. So we have to vote to call for the question.
Okay, so,
Get a second,
Yes.
and call for the question.
second for call the question, please?
Aye.
All right, so we need an emotion.
To what? Wait, so
So
Tom,
you withdrew your second?
yes. Well, no, but he called for the question, but we kinda did it at the same time.
Oh, okay.
But I'll withdraw my second, because I
All right, so we don't have a second. Do we have a second for Tom's motion? I didn't think so. So now we need
But
a
I
motion.
would like to make a motion for a third alternative,
Okay,
which is to bring in Moffett and Nickel and, 505 Design and, what other firms that you think that we can get a hold of to do a presentation.
Well, in order for us to bring in other firms, we would have to
Well,
put out the RFP.
well, 505 Design's mentioned in here, right?
Yeah, well, 505.
They'd be a subcontractor of
Yeah.
Moffett
Yeah,
Nickel.
Moffett Nichols
Okay, so we would
proposal.
have to,
Yeah.
As a sole responder to the RFP,
Yeah, I
Moffett
know,
Nichols
that's-
would come and make a presentation to us. But
let's
that's
just do
concerns.
that. That would be my motion to have Moffett and Nickel come and make a presentation to us in the next, either the March or April meeting.
could I add a friendly amendment to that, to have staff also do some research
Yeah.
into
Yes, so
what
I'll
we
accept
might
that.
expect to pay for this kind of.
Yes, so I will take that friendly amendment. So the motion would be to have Moffett and Nickel to come and do a presentation and to have staff or direct staff to, work on like comps kind of information.
Could we also add an amendment to simultaneously put out the RFP again? Because even if we got responses from the RFP, we don't have to hear any of them. So if we got the proposal or we got the presentation from Moffett Nickel and we were convinced that they were the firm, then we could
Move forward.
with them, and at least we would have had that RFP process going in the event that we hear from them and we're like, no, we still need to look at, is there another firm for comparison's sakes?
John, would it work like that? Would we be able to do the RFP process and withdraw it if we, in the meantime, had the presentation from Moffett and Nichols and we all felt comfortable moving forward? Do you have a question
Well,
about?
that seems odd because if you're gonna, if you're gonna start the RFP process over, you need to reject all
The whole, yeah, that-
proposals
which is
and start
alternative
over.
two.
And you wouldn't wanna be putting out signals that you have, that you're,
Right.
right?
So
It
no, I'm not-
doesn't seem like the process is
I
fair
agree.
if you're simultaneously
Yeah,
interviewing.
you're right.
So I'm not going to accept that friendly
Somebody do it
amendment.
first.
Okay.
So is there a second to the new motion with the friendly amendment?
My friendly amendment.
Yeah,
So
but
that
I
would be-
accepted your friendly amendment to my
Can
original
we
motion.
hear the motion in
Yeah.
its entirety, please?
Yeah.
Do you have the motion?
I'm confused. It's
That would be to bring.
bring back Moffitt
Moffitt
and
Nichols.
Nichols to do a presentation.
Right.
Staff also research the cost,
And
from
do-
other firms.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You mean
And then I think I missed part of it.
Basically like
No,
comparable,
that's it.
comparable, research on comparables.
I think, Jim, you understand where we're going with that.
on what other like agencies have paid for
Right.
master
Yeah,
plans?
like agencies that are our size, like the Harvard did, yeah. So that is the motion, is it? Is there a
Okay.
second?
I'll second that. It's a step.
I have a comment. I'm concerned that this could further delay the process, because if we decide that we want to go out to at least try to solicit one other proposal, especially in light of the fact that Moffitt Nickel does have a built-in conflict of interest, we are just moving that date out. And so, as much as I'm not opposed to getting additional information, if that means that we can't re-put out or, send out the RFP again, I'm not in favor of delaying, putting the RFP back out. I think we do need to put the RFP back out. It's been a long time since it was out, and I think we need to see what we get back. And I do believe that Moffitt Nickel would love to work for us anytime, so I don't think there's a fear that we couldn't find a way to hire them if need be, if no one provided any proposals. So I just think going back out for RFP at this point is a really good idea, just to do our due diligence. And that way, when we do have more than one proposal, we can hear from two firms. And it would be informative too, because there may be a big price difference between them.
Your point is well taken, and this is gonna be the night for withdrawing seconds. I'm gonna withdraw my second.
And may I add one comment on that,
Uh-huh.
please? So that we don't get the same response back, I suggest that staff amend the RFP request to make it a little bit less challenging for firms that do master plans.
Master plan. Good point.
Well, so is
I
that
made
your
a note
motion? Because then maybe what we should do is make a motion to reject
Yes.
this.
It
So
looks
I
like
will
we
make a
should
motion to reject
reject.
Moffitt and Nichols' proposal and resubmit the RFP,
I'll second that. That's
which is
option number
alternative two.
Okay, and resubmit the RFP.
Yes.
And I'm on board with that, but I did want to hear what Jim was about to say. You were about to say
Yeah, sorry.
something.
Just in
wanted to make-
response to Commissioner Matush's comment, I had made a note during the discussion that if all responses were rejected, and then this resend out the RFP, the RFP would be redrafted and refocused to better seek master planning firms versus engineering firms. And we can do that.
Appreciate that.
Okay, good. See, so we have a motion and a second. So Melanie, roll call please.
Commissioner Shane Corrales.
Aye.
Commissioner Marinas.
Aye.
Commissioner Breyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush.
Aye.
Commissioner Grant.
Aye.
Great. Okay, thank you. We move on to item number 14, Article Parking Public Restroom. The ad hoc committee is, so who will be presenting this item?
I'll start, because we had a meeting, we interviewed 5 groups. We decided on one group, and we're happy with them, and I'm surprised to see that there's even a consideration that we would reject the RFP. So I am in favor of following up on the firm that we agreed on.
Which is the alternative motion, or okay, so I'm a little confused.
Where are the proposals?
Where's our, do we specifically say about Quest in here?
No, I don't think so.
The proposals are not attached, is that correct?
They are not.
So we don't know what we're talking about.
Well, out of the 5 groups between staff and the ad hoc committee, we left the room and we had all agreed on Quest. And I would say we move forward with Quest.
May I comment now?
Thank you. Yes, Ed.
Okay, first of all, as I said before, we did not all agree. Maybe we haven't failure to communicate. Since I was one of the commissioners on that ad hoc committee, I'm telling you and our viewers and the members of the public, from my point of view, we did not all agree, so that leaves us with that. I agreed to serve on the RV lot ad hoc committee under protest from the very beginning. And then we did have the meeting, we evaluated 3 firms. My concern was that they were very different from each other and they would have represented a very different public outreach. They were distinctly different, and from my point of view, the public outreach for the RV park is really important. When we did this at when Half Moon Bay did their meeting for the concepts for the RV park bathrooms, the room was packed. We would expect the same. So I think we need to make sure that we hire a firm that our public can communicate with. Furthermore, I heard from several members of the public that they would appreciate being involved in the very initial part of this, which means choosing the firm that we hire.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Clark, you have public comment on this item?
First, my own comment is to totally agree that having public involvement in this busiest beach in San Mateo County is really important. And next, a long-time and locally well-known community activist, Fran Pollard, gave me a call. She couldn't be at the meeting tonight, and she asked me to use her name and convey what I hope are her 2 main points. I hope I paraphrase them adequately. First is that she does not believe there's been adequate outreach because whatever happens at Surfers Beach impacts our local community directly and for the foreseeable future. And her second main point was that she really didn't think that outdoor showers should be put in by our district, GCSD, as part of our Burnham Park plan, because your district will be building showers over there. And that hasn't gotten out to the public, obviously because GCSD is still getting pressure to make sure we put showers on the park on this side of the highway, specifically for the use of surfers. I have responded to people about this and said, well, Harbor District's building a new restroom, and there'll be showers for surfers right there at the beach. And they said, well, how come I didn't know that? So, yeah, I think that maybe the public should be a little more involved. And again, I also appreciate the efforts that you have made, and I know that it's difficult to reach 50% plus 1 of any group. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a comment
Go ahead, Sabrina.
So, thanks for sharing, Matthew. That was a really interesting comment because I had no idea that there was any interest on the part of GCSD, or sorry, the public, to try to get GCSD to build showers on the east side of Highway 1. I just want to respond to that because what immediately comes up for me is that there could be additional fatalities because the shower would act as a lure to get people to cross over when they might not need to otherwise. And so part of the reason why I'm hopeful that we have a really great shower setup at the facility is so that there is less need for crossing that dangerous highway where there have been so many fatalities over the years, which is just heartbreaking, especially when we know children are crossing. So, I think this is a very exciting project and there is a lot of public interest in the project. And I think that by reviewing the proposals publicly, there's an opportunity for the board to learn and for the public to learn. And I think it jumpstarts the process in a positive light. And I think that's so critical, especially when we need permits that are hard to get. And we are working collaboratively with the city of Half Moon Bay and they've been fantastic. But there's definitely a lot of public interest in this, and I can't imagine why we wouldn't want to. I'd like to review the proposals and frankly think they should have been attached in the staff report. I'd like a hard copy of those proposals and I'd like to see who responded to the RFP, and I sure hope that a designer, meaning an architect, is going to end up leading the project, not an engineering firm. So I don't know right now if that's the case. I have no idea what's going to happen. I don't have enough information. I want to be better informed as a board member, and I'd like to hear from at least 3. I don't know how many respondents do we get on this project?
3.
3. I mean, I'd love to hear from all 3, and learn about how they individually propose to do it. I'm assuming there's probably a number of subcontractors, so on and so forth. This project may seem like it's not important to some people. Oh, it's a restroom. It's more than a restroom. This is a place where people are going to be meeting up. Families are going to be hanging out. We've got people that meet up for the beach cleanups right there. We need the recycling center. We need the showers for the surfers. We need to make sure that we have benches, that we have proper ADA access, that we have parking for, the nonprofit surf schools that need to pull up their vans and unload kids. I mean, this is all stuff that is vital to the community. When you live in a community that is so ocean-centric, and everybody lives outdoors practically, and the coastal trail is the only way to get anywhere on the weekends because you can't drive on the highway, and the coastal trail literally goes right through this project. I can't imagine why we wouldn't want to hear the proposals. I'd like to do that. So those are my initial thoughts.
Tom, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I believe Commissioner Lorenas had spoken to some people after we left the meeting, and Commissioner Lorenas and I disagree on the outcome of the meeting. We decided on a firm. And I just think we should point out, we should not be having meeting behind the public's back, because the staff and the committee decided on a group. And as Commissioner Brennan pointed out, having people running back and forth across the highway, well, the devil's in the details, because cars don't park on that side of the freeway. They park on the other side for the most part for the surfing community. So it does make sense to have the showers with GCSD anyway, where they park their cars. But we're so far away from that that's not even an issue. But I believe that we had all come up with Quest, was it?
Quest was just one of the firms for sure.
Yeah, that's the one we all agreed on. So I'd recommend going ahead with Quest rather than redoing the whole show, dog and pony show.
I have a follow-up comment when it's my turn.
Okay, I just would like to interject that our motion on item number 12 tonight kind of impacts item number 14, in that we wouldn't move forward to have the ad hoc committee review this matter again in any event. It would go to staff for staff's recommendation and then bring something to the board. Is that right, Jim?
If we go back out for RFPs, for a new RFP, and then we'd follow the process of that RFP.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, but what, okay, so.
But we could,
are you-
but we do have the opportunity then to, make one of the two motions present, okay.
So, oh, sorry, is
So
it?
I have a comment. First of all, I'm not sure what you're talking about having meetings with the public. I don't appreciate being accused of having background meetings. I'm not sure how you characterize it, but that's not appropriate. And I would expect the board to have better behavior. I'm not accusing you of anything. We can disagree. I have no problem with that. In fact, I expect us to disagree. That's how we get to a better solution in the end. But let's not make accusations unless you're willing. If you want to make an accusation like that, take it to the district attorney. Don't accuse me of a meeting unless you have.
I was just going on what you told me, that you had met with people, and you'd also talked to people at the Mid-Coast Community Council,
Oh,
and that was after we had our meeting.
we are allowed to talk to members.
That's
of the
fine.
public.
That's what I was referencing
Okay.
here. I'm not saying anything wrong.
Okay.
I'm saying what you
I
said.
misunderstood you.
Yeah,
I
okay.
apologize. Yeah, absolutely, I talk to the public.
I think what my concern is with what I just heard is this assumption that this ad hoc committee that's somehow functioning as a selection committee appointed by one board member, I'm not sure how that's happening, that doesn't sound legal at all, but anyway, that's what happened, that group of two commissioners held a meeting that was not public, and I'm hearing somehow that that's being touted as a process that's appropriate, and somehow like having a public transparent process is inappropriate. I mean, I'm just confused about where Commissioner Mateusz is coming from with this. I think that the public was clearly not invited to the two commissioner meeting. The public was not invited. So there were 0 public members there. It was not transparent. There was no accountability. And so, you know, right now, we just approved going back out for RFP in the last, in the last agenda item, which is a little different than the item before it. So we're kind of all over the map with what we're doing, but I think what's important is that we do good work for the public, and that's what I care about. And I really want to see us take this project seriously. I want to hear from the applicants. I want to read their proposals. I want to ask some questions. I think that we should be doing that at this meeting right now. I don't understand why we can't do that, because we have done that in the past and during our RFP proposal hearing process. So, I just like we want to hear from, we're going to want to hear from the applicants for the master plan. I believe that that's the right thing to do for this as well, and, I think that we owe it to the public to do that. So those are my thoughts about it. As far as this business about people parking, we have a whole community of people that use their bicycles and walk. They do not drive to Surfers Beach. It's mostly people from visitors that are driving to, not that the visitors aren't important, but I think to assume that people are always driving that live in our community is an inaccurate assumption. Just because you yourself might drive everywhere and never ride a bike, doesn't mean that others don't. So I think we do have to think about the pedestrian and the bicycle community and how to provide facilities that accommodate them.
Yes, go ahead, Virginia.
So, first of all, the person who appointed the ad hoc committee was the president, which is the president's prerogative, and which you also used that prerogative when you were president. So it's not just any commissioner, it's the president who is voted by the commission. So I would like that to be very clear, that it wasn't just one willy-nilly commissioner, and that the board was fine with it. Just because you weren't at the meeting, I can't help it, that's what happened. And you can review the minutes, you can watch the tape, whatever. So I want to make it very clear, it's not just a person willy-nilly. It is the president of the board, and that is the president's prerogative. So a quick question for the staff. So Jim, right here, you've got two alternatives. One is the motion to reject all the responses, and the other one is to authorize the general manager pursuant to a request for proposal for response evaluation from qualified firms and individuals to enter into a professional service agreement with the responding firms. So do you have a preference for which one? I mean, it looks like
I think there's a third way to move
Well,
forward.
if I can address the
Yeah.
one question, it's more of a process question right now,
Okay.
because the evaluation of the firms have been referred to an ad hoc committee, and
Yes.
that's where it sits right now.
right, which is the committee's work.
And we don't have a recommendation from the ad hoc committee.
Okay.
So I think the two motions are opposite ends of the spectrums,
Right.
and that you can consider anything in between.
Yes.
But this is truly kind of a report from the ad hoc committee demonstrating there is no, as of when it was put into the binder, there was no unified recommendation at that time.
So in light of the motion that carried on item number 12, I think the way to move forward on this is to take this back to staff, have staff bring us a proposal that would allow for public input on design and whatever else that they will comment on in the same way that staff would be conducting RFPs for other projects. That'd be my recommendation, and I'll make that as a motion.
So before you make the motion, I'd just like to clarify a little bit. So what we're talking about here is hiring, at the moment anyway, 2 firms that responded to the RFP.
Mm-hmm.
Now the ad hoc committee did hear from all 3,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason we are where we are is because it's my view that commissioners and the public should hear from all 3, and then we make a decision.
I understand that, but I think that on item number 12 this evening, what we made a motion carried,
Yes.
that staff will conduct RFP process, bring things forward to us, at which time the public can be involved.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
I'll second that.
But on item 13, we did something completely different. So there hasn't been any consistency, if that's your point. I would like to chime in that, with regard to the committee, an ad hoc committee is not the same as an RFP proposal evaluation committee. And I've been trying to stress that point tonight. It is not appropriate for a board president to select 2 board members to be on an ad hoc committee and then suddenly make them into an RFP proposal evaluation committee that should have very specific requirements. It's just like, that doesn't make sense. So the board, if there is going to be an evaluation committee, and I'm responding to Chen Corrali's comments, then the evaluation committee process needs to be well thought out. There should be experts on there that can provide input. In the case of this process, Jill was completely left out of it. She was not included in this committee process whatsoever, and she is the planning person that we've been working with, who's great, by the way, from Half Moon Bay. She is would have been a great person to have be part of this evaluation. She was left out. There's been no person with expertise relevant to evaluate these proposals, and I don't know why we would do things that way. So it wasn't that staff didn't go into this with the intention that they were going to be making the recommendation. They went into this with the intention that the ad hoc committee, which became a quasi RFP proposal evaluation committee, was going to be handing up a recommendation to the board. Well, obviously, for whatever reasons, that didn't happen. So the whole process is pretty corrupted at this point. I don't know how else to explain it, Why don't we just do things in a simple and transparent way and hear the proposals from the people who are making them at a public meeting so that we can all be informed and the public feels like they're informed, and the other agencies that we work with, such as GCSD, the Mid-Coast Community Council, the county, so forth, that have been here tonight, so that they feel like they have ability to be stakeholders and to be part of a transparent process and provide commentary. It would only make the project better, that's all. I'm interested in the best possible project, and if at this point I don't have any idea, or nobody has any idea, because we don't have the proposals attached here. We have nothing.
So I'd like to make a motion that with this goes back to staff, and that staff.
Motion already.
Oh, I already made my motion.
I second
Okay.
it. So
Oh,
I
you
just
seconded
wanted to,
Okay.
yeah, I was gonna
All right, comment, can we have timer, please,
I
on
just
these
wanted to
comments,
say-
Melanie?
So
Could we take a bathroom break?
Thank you for
I
your
was
opinion,
told that
Commissioner
everybody
Brennan,
gets
and so
5
I would,
minutes.
No, 3.
it's 3.
That's
It's actually 2, I think.
Lori told me 3.
No.
Okay.
5.
Can we
That's
take
why
a
I probably, I'm
So-
sorry.
That was on
So-
commissioner comments at the beginning.
Okay.
point of
So-
order? I'm
so,
asking for a restroom break.
I'm calling for the question.
Can we please have a restroom break? Because I really.
I'm calling. Okay, I'm calling.
We could take a 2-minute restroom break.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I don't mean to argue with you, I thought we came out of that between you,
Yeah, I don't
me,
know.
and him.
Now
We
you've
all
got-
agreed
I
on
know,
the same
remember,
thing.
we agreed, and I wrote you this in an email, we actually, gummies,
Gummies, pass the gummies.
Sorry. When I did the.
You
No,
kept
we-
saying, I was like, no.
We decided this last year.
Yes,
It's 2 minutes.
Qualifications, and
Yes.
basically
It is 2
references.
minutes.
No, we told me 5 minutes.
good.
I'm not gonna flew.
It's 2 minutes. That's why we got looking at you.
Request was it?
Yeah.
And it's for everybody. This was done by Commissioner Brennan was the
Nobody
president.
said a word.
It's for the public and.
3 minutes for the public, 2 minutes for each commissioner.
We never-
We're gonna reconvene the meeting. And Virginia has called,
Excuse me.
I'm calling for the question.
calling for
So we have to vote on calling for the question.
Well, I had an idea. Can I at least?
No, I called for the question.
Yeah, I
You've
did.
already given your opinion and I appreciate that.
This was a compromise idea that I'd like to propose.
I'd like to hear it.
Okay, then I'll take back my calling for the question.
So, I don't know what all the concerns are, frankly, but if we wanted to compromise, one suggestion would be that staff recommend the top 2, so then at least we're narrowing the field. That means it'll take less time, and that we hear from the top 2 at the next meeting.
How do you feel about that, Ed?
Be fine.
Okay, well, we're gonna deviate from the process a little bit, but I'll take that as a friendly amendment to my motion. Do you still have a second for that, Virginia?
I'll second it.
Second? All right then, roll call, please.
Well, do we want to have?
Oh, discussion.
No, I'd just like to hear the
Yeah,
motion.
what are we voting on?
Oh, okay.
So,
Motion,
I am kind of confused. Take this back to staff and have a proposal with input from the public, and then the second half I think I missed.
No, not take this back. My motion is that staff take over for the ad hoc committee, and with Sabrina's amendment, bring forward the top two firms to the board in a public meeting.
So we can get their proposals from
Yes,
them.
Jim.
I just, one comment, if we do that, and I'm not saying recommending against or for,
Right.
but if we do that, then we're not following the RFP, we're way outside the bounds of the RFP process as defined in the published RFP.
Right.
And if we bring the two firms in to make a presentation in public with full board consideration like that, we'd have to reissue the RFP to cover that process, or the firm that does not get selected would more than likely file a protest,
Right.
and that protest would be a valid protest.
Okay, I have a
And
question.
Tricia, if you can correct me
I
on
have a
that.
question about that. Because in the RFP, it clearly states, if I remember what you sent me correctly, it clearly states that the firms can come in and give a presentation to the board at a publicly noticed meeting. It states that in the RFP. So all we're doing is asking them to do that, correct?
That's under the ex parte communications, and if they want to, if a firm desires to come in and make a presentation at a board meeting, they can, and not violate the ex parte communication prohibitions in the RFP, but that doesn't mean that we're following the process outlined in the entire selection process outlined in the RFP. It would be outside the bounds of that selection process as outlined in that RFP.
Can you explain that? Because why would it say that they can come in and give a presentation if indeed they cannot?
So I would like to just see the RFP and look at it in light of what's being proposed. If do you have a copy of it here?
But we can get it for you.
Because I think the question is, does the RFP allow for the selection committee to come forward, as I understand it, with 2 recommendations versus just 1? And to allow those 2 recommended firms to make a presentation regarding their proposal. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and I think I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so obviously I want to hear your input, but we've always done it that way, so I just can't understand why suddenly we can't. It doesn't make sense to me.
But my understanding of what you were saying, Jim, is that we can't ask even all 3 to come and present. Is that correct?
And do public interviews, that's not envisioned in the RFP.
It's not an interview, it's them giving a presentation. I think that might be where we're confused. We're not suddenly gonna become the selection committee. This isn't like a formal selection committee interview. It's just them coming and showing us their PowerPoint, that's all.
Yeah, but we're asking for us to select between 2.
Well, we have to vote to pick a firm, but, yeah, but we don't even have to do that at that meeting. We could do it at a future meeting if we wanted to. We could have them come during a special meeting and give their presentation, and then at the following meeting, we could have had time to think about it, get the public input, and make a decision. So that's often the way things are done at other boards. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it in 2 meetings, especially when it's a really important project. But those are just some thoughts, but yeah, I'd love to hear what you think about the RFP, because
Madam President, let me understand, because the motion on the table is to bring back 2 firms for the board to choose from.
Well, I think I'm withdrawing my motion.
Oh, okay.
I feel that since the ad hoc committee doesn't agree on what to bring forward to the board, the way forward, keep trying to get away to get here, would be to kick this back to staff and use our process, which is agenda item number 12.
well, could we at least hear what the lawyer has to say? Because she's gonna review that.
I would like to make a motion to add more time because we're running out. So, how much time do we need? Ready to go till
Quarter till?
9.
Mm-hmm.
Ex parte communication is the word I'm talking about.
Is there a second to my motion to add more time?
Yeah, I'll second the motion to add more time.
Or should we take a little break so she can read
It
this?
doesn't matter, I mean, we have, our meeting ends at 9:30. Yeah, we can take a
Okay,
break, but I'm just
okay.
adding more time
Okay,
so that she's not rushed. So there's a motion and a second to add more time and adjourn the meeting at 9:45.
yeah.
We should do a roll call before.
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner St. Crawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryring,
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush.
Aye.
Do you want to take a little break? Can
Take a 5-minute.
let
Trish, you can
Tricia
use
have
pages
some time.
12.2 and 12.3 as a guide.
Back in
You ready?
session here,
Reconvening.
reconvening our meeting at 9:46. And where did we leave off? We have, I think I have, do I have a motion on the table about this?
There was a
that we
question
referred-
to general counsel
Yes,
that we're awaiting a response on.
great.
Yes.
Okay.
That's where
And
we
the
left off.
question, just to get up to speed here,
Yes.
was whether or not that motion would be appropriate to interview the two top firms or have a presentation by
Or-
the two top firms
Could we interview
Well-
firms is the question too.
under the current RFP process.
Wait, so Tricia,
Yes.
the motion was her motion was withdrawn.
So she withdrew it, right?
Yes.
I would do
Okay.
it. So my
Okay.
motion really is to take this back to.
We wanna
I
hear-
still
we
want to
need
hear from
Oh,
her.
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
Okay.
What was the
Oh.
outcome? Because we may
Well,
want.
can you let her talk? So Tricia.
So after looking at the proposal and talking to the general manager, I agree that the process outlined in the RFP does not, that it says there's gonna be one recommended firm, that you're gonna go through the evaluation process and you're gonna bring to the board one firm for the board's consideration. It doesn't, after that evaluation period, there's not like a second tier of public, interview. And so I think that I agree with the general manager that
Where does it say, can you quote that section? Just, I believe you, but I just want to understand it.
So the district staff will review all proposals, and then they will hold the finalists of the proposals that they've reviewed will be invited to an oral interview. Then following the initial review and screening of the proposals, under the selection process of the RFP, one or more companies may be invited to participate in the final selection process, which may include participation in an oral interview, submission of any additional information, checking references, and checking the firm's financial stability. Upon completion of the final selection process, the district will rank each firm in accordance with the criteria above. And after the ranking has been determined, they open the cost proposal, and then then that is brought forward to the district to commissioners to accept the proposal on behalf of the district. And so this is, I think, a deviation from that final selection process as it's outlined in the
So
proposal.
it says there can be 2 interviews or 1 interview.
I see only one interview.
Okay, and so just so I understand, if we wanted to reword the RFP, maybe future, I certainly would want to now, but how would we word the RFP to allow for there to be a transparent process so that the board can be
That is not the
informed?
agenda item.
I'm asking,
That's not the
But
agenda
counsel,
item.
I would
That's
like-
not the
That's
agenda
relevant.
item.
Excuse me, but no,
Not to this agenda
I would like to just stay on task here because it's late. So my motion is that since the ad hoc committee
can you
was
give
not in
that to me?
agreement and did not bring a firm forward to us, that I'd like to kick this back to staff and staff do that. Staff bring forward a recommendation for a firm. Do I have a second for the motion?
Second.
Commissioner Brennan,
No.
Commissioner St. Crawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
Absolutely not.
Commissioner Ryring,
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush.
Aye.
Great. Okay, that motion carries. So we're going to move on to item number 15, standing and ad hoc committee review and assignments. So starting with climate change resilience, that's Commissioner Lorenz and Commissioner Ryring.
Can we have discussion before we do finance, please?
I'm sorry, what page are we on?
Item 15.
It's item
15-2.
Yeah, Ed, do you have something you'd like to say?
Yes, I'd like to just make a comment in general about committees. We're extremely fortunate to have members of the community willing to serve on our committees. San Mateo County has over 40 commissions and committees. Some, like Midcoast Community Council, have elected members. Others, like the Commission on Aging, are populated by interested members of the public who are appointed by the Board of Supervisors. Many of the commissions and committees are composed of members of the public and of the board. Committees are a valuable and important resource for local government, including the San Mateo County Harbor District. They generally serve an advisory role, like in our case. They make recommendations to the appointing body. Having appointed members of the public on committees provides the organization an opportunity to tap into a vast resource of expertise, passion, and commitment. They are one of the best mechanisms for our organization to provide public outreach. Strong committees do the work. Committees are especially valuable when they include members of the public and board with divergent points of view. They research, they network, they do public outreach, and they reach consensus. Our district, by continuing to exclude members of the public from appointment to our committees, loses all of this. And worse yet, it sends a shameful message to the public and the people that we serve that their voice is not important. So I want you to take that into consideration when you consider having members of the public on our committees.
It's kind of interesting that we have a board member from GCSD here because they have public members serving on their committees.
Yeah, and I have a list, I'm willing to send it to any of you, of all of the committees that San Mateo County has with members of the public serving on those committees.
Okay, thank you, Ed.
Mm-hmm.
And we can think about that some more. So for the existing standing committees, I am appointing Commissioner Lorenz and myself. And John, you're the liaison for that committee.
Excuse me, which committee is this?
Climate change,
Um,
resilience.
Can you also, before you do the assignments, can you consider whether this board is going to allow members of the public as members of the committee? Are we going to keep with that
That's not
as part of this?
an item. That's not
I
an
don't
item.
think that this is the time to discuss that, but
I think that we've never closed our committee meetings to members of the public to attend.
right.
So it's a very
Excuse me?
moot point. We don't close our committee meetings to the public. We make our committee meetings public. Why cannot the public simply attend? and
Because
voice
what
their
I'm
opinion?
asking
That is
for,
not
and
the
I've said this a
item.
million times, is for members of the public to become voting, appointed members to the committee, like we had with our finance committee before the public was removed. And all I'm asking, it's up to the board to decide
But
is,
that's not the
I think we
motion.
did,
There's
I
no
think we
motion.
did.
Okay, well,
It's
then
not on the agenda.
Right,
I
there's no,
think that we
there's
did
no
vote on
agenda.
that back in South San Francisco at our meeting at the.
well, you did vote on,
PowerPoint.
okay, so then I'd like to make a statement then.
Mhm.
I do not want to be appointed to any committees that do not have members of the public appointed.
Oh, okay.
I'd
confused.
be happy to sit on that committee unless someone else
Okay.
wants to.
I'm sorry, who was appointed to the climate change? I didn't hear it.
Well, now it's Commissioner Chen Crowley and myself. For finance, it's Commissioner Matoush and Commissioner Chen Crowley. For Oyster Point liaison, it's Commissioner Chen Crowley and myself. And for the
if you're gonna exclude the members of the
Okay,
public.
that's fine.
Well, I'm not excluding members of the public, I'm just appointing commissioners. So.
Wait, you just told me that we had already
We're-
made at Oyster Point, we
Right.
made the decision as a board to keep the members of the public from serving as voting members on the committee.
Correct.
You just told me that.
That's correct.
I watched that
Okay.
video, and
That's
Nancy, you voted to support excluding public
That's correct.
members.
That's
That's
correct.
correct.
That's
Yeah.
correct, I
And there's
did.
a reason.
Okay.
Yes, I stand by that. Okay,
Okay.
so we have a Climate Change Resiliency Committee with Commissioner Chang Crawley and myself. Finance with Commissioner Chang Crawley and Commissioner Matoush. We have Oyster Point Marina Liaison, Commissioner Chang Crawley and myself. We have Office Design, new admin building. I don't know who to appoint to, so I'm just gonna skip that for now.
What about social media? You didn't mention that one.
That is defunct. It has achieved its goals. I'm not appointing anybody to that one.
So you're killing that committee. Just to be
She's not
clear.
appointing someone to the committee.
Okay.
It's not that
It
it's been
served,
killed.
it has served its
But it hasn't been
purpose.
killed.
No.
You're just not appointing.
Ad hoc design, new admin building, Commissioner Matoush and myself. And that's all for tonight.
Excuse me, can I make one last comment, please?
Yes, Ed.
So my comment is this. As a member of the Climate Change Resiliency Meeting and as a member of the Wildlife Protection Committee, I have had commissioners, it started with Robert Bernardo, who was a commissioner on the Harbor District, who refused to attend the meetings and has spent an entire year without a committee meeting happening. Now, in the first 6 months of last year, I had commissioners who were actually interested in getting work done, serve on my committees, and we actually got some things accomplished. The last 6 months, more or less, commissioners failed to come to the meetings. The most current meeting we had one commissioner who refused to come, so we did not have the meeting. That was Wildlife Protection Committee. And the second meeting was Sea Level Rise Resiliency. We had a commissioner that agreed, which is our board president, that agreed to come to this meeting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, excluded the public, who came entirely unprepared, left early because her comment was that we were discussing habitat restoration and native plants, and they don't have anything to do with climate change resiliency, which is absolutely wrong. And now you have them on those committees. Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
I have a question. I'd like to know why I have been excluded from all committees.
Well, I was gonna put you on wildlife protection, but I don't know who I can put on as a second person.
You didn't communicate with me about any of this, Nancy.
well, when you appointed people, you didn't communicate with any of us. So what's the difference,
I asked
Sabrina?
people
No,
what
you did not.
committees
You
they
did not
wanted to
ask
serve
me
on.
at all. So you maybe excluded me. Maybe it was retaliation. I don't know. It could have been harassment. I don't know. But please,
I
don't
did
even go
not-
there. So
You're
So-
interrupting
so
me.
you're interrupting me.
It is not your turn to speak.
Do
You
we
are
need, I would
interrupting
like
me.
to make a motion.
I want to finish my comment.
So I'd like to make a motion
I would
to
like to
accept,
finish my
to approve
comment.
this.
You're cutting me off.
I'm making a motion to
You are
approve
cutting
the
me off.
committee
Thank you.
members.
You are cutting me off.
I'm sorry you think that.
Virginia's
It's-
motion to approve
It's
this
obvious that
committee
you are
assignments.
cutting me off.
Yes.
All right. roll
And
call,
the board
please.
president, this is pure
Roll call,
retaliation
please.
right here.
Please.
And all because Commissioner Matoush sent pictures of women's vaginas to me. And you guys are sitting there and okay with the fact that that man sent me pornographic images.
You are an absolute
Then
liar, Sabrina. You asked for that. Do not continue to lie in front of the camera. You asked for that.
I
So it doesn't
asked you to
matter.
send me pornography?
She's not-
Oh,
You
this is a
can-
new
you can-
low,
you can
Tom.
lie or play
This
any
is
way
a
you
new
want.
low.
I'm not taking your
You are a
lies and
sexual
accusations
predator, and these two
anymore.
women are your accomplices. They are coing you and they are allowing this type of behavior to continue. It is so unprofessional. I can't believe you. I cannot believe that you would sit here, Nancy Raring, and you would appoint a man who is a sexual predator and has sent me pornography. Not to mention the fact that he has acted sexually inappropriately around me, which is sexual harassment at district functions. You are appointing him to committees and refusing to put me on a committee. That is disgusting. I am disgusted with how I'm being treated here. This is horrible. How can you treat another woman like this? What kind of person would do that?
We have to.
It's disgusting.
Melanie, we have a motion and a second to approve the committee assignments. Can you do a roll call, please?
Hold on a second. I just want to be sure. In the past, has the commission approved
No.
the president's appointments?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's
Just, I
just
have,
appointment.
I have one comment before we move on.
Yes,
With the RV lot CDP,
yes,
it's a current commission right now with standing members.
okay,
Commissioner Lorena says he does not want to be on the commissions anymore
right.
without public
Members of
member.
the public
So
who have not.
the status of the RV lot CDP is going to be, is it left open right now with no commissioners assigned?
Sabrina, would you like to be on that committee?
With Tom?
Is with Tom?
Are you offering me a position on a committee with a man who sent me pornographic
No.
images?
So would you like to be on that committee, Virginia?
I'm happy to.
Okay, so Virginia, we'll appoint Virginia to that committee with Commissioner Matoush.
Thank you.
And I would like to finish with future agenda items. I have two. One is to amend resolution number 19-01 to change the location of regular meetings. And the second one is to exempt the Oyster Point Liaison Committee from the meeting requirement in the district policy. The Oyster Point Liaison Standing Committee is required by the MOU to meet only once each year. Therefore, the commissioners serving on this special MOU required committee need to be exempted from quarterly meetings. If that could be on next month's agenda, that would be terrific.
Do we need to vote on that?
Yeah,
I'll make a motion
I
to
need
put,
three.
I'll make a motion to add these on to next month's agenda, regular agenda.
Second.
Roll call.
Discussion.
Oh, discussion, yeah.
Oh, any discussion? Any discussion?
I'd like you to restate what the
And I think you
requests
should
were.
they need to be stated as individuals, because the way it's set up, we're voting on two.
All right, let's vote on.
Okay, I'll make a
first
motion
one.
to vote on, to put the future agenda item on for policy 19-01 to change the location
Of
of regular
meetings.
meetings. So that's, there's a motion for that, is there a second?
Second.
Roll call,
Yes, please.
Commissioner Brennan,
Can you restate what the motion is?
to,
We're out of time.
change resolution
We're out of time in 1 minute.
dash
Yep.
01,
Okay.
to change the regular meetings.
So Melanie, before we move, I'd like to extend the meeting for 5 minutes to 9:50. I'll make a motion for that, is there a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Brennan, Commissioner Chang Grant,
Aye.
Commissioner Duenas,
Aye.
Commissioner Raring,
Aye.
Commissioner Matoush.
Aye.
Okay, so there's a motion to put on to the next month's regular agenda, the item for 1901, which is to change, or per the policy 1901, which is to change the location of the regular meetings.
Isn't that the one we just voted on?
No,
No,
we
that was
voted on a
extending the
time
meeting.
extension.
Oh,
so
that's right.
Extending it.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I'm now making that motion
right.
for that item.
Thank
But we're not voting on an item, we're voting on putting it on to
On
the
the
March
agenda.
regular agenda.
Right. Okay, I'll second that.
Roll call. Commissioner Brennan? Commissioner Chang Crowley?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
No.
Commissioner Ryrie?
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush?
Aye.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to make the Oyster Point Liaison Committee meet once per year because it is a JPA sanctioned or required committee instead of meeting, I guess, exempting it from meeting four times a year.
The policy
Yeah,
on
yeah,
standing committees.
yes.
Thank you for stating that more succinctly than I did.
Is there a second?
Oh, I'll second
Commissioner Brennan? Commissioner Chang Crowley?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Aye.
Commissioner Ryrie?
it. Aye.
Commissioner Mathush?
Aye. Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.